Welcome back, fearless seekers of the supernatural, to my channel, where fog rolls in off the Atlantic, waves crash against jagged rocks, and the past never truly sleeps. Tonight, we sail along the coast of North Carolina, exploring its most haunted lighthouses, a towering sentinels of the sea where light once guided sailors safely home, and where now ghostly keepers roam, never abandoning their posts. These lighthouses are haunted by tragic shipwrecks, lonely lighthouse keepers, and mysterious apparitions that appear when the fog is thickest. Some are seen climbing staircases that no longer exist, polishing lanterns long extinguished, or staring silently at the horizon, waiting for ships that never return. Because along this rugged coastline, the living are not always Alonia, and the dead still tend the lights. The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse in Buxton, North Carolina, stands proudly against the winds and waves of the Atlantic Ocean, its black and white spiral design cutting a striking figure along the outer banks. For more than a century, it has guided sailors through the treacherous waters of the graveyard of the Atlantic, where countless ships have met their fate. Its beam has saved lives and prevented disasters, but those who visit the towering structure often speak of another presencia, one that lingers long after the storms have passed. The lighthouse, they say, is not just a beacon for sailors at sea, but also a home for spirits who never left their watch. The sound of waves crashing below mingles with the hollow echo of footsteps winding up the spiraling staircase. Many have climbed those narrow steps, only to hear another set of boots following behind them. When they turn to look, the stairs are empty. Some describe the sound as slow and steady, as though someone is inspecting each step, careful and deliberate. Others report hurried steps, as if someone is racing toward the top, perhaps to tend a light before a storm. There are also stories of ghostly figures appearing in the lantern room, with a great beacon once needed constant tending. Several witnesses have reported seeing a man dressed in an old-fashioned keeper-esque uniform, polishing the brass fittings or adjusting invisible controls. At first glance, he seems solid and alive, but as soon as someone calls out or draws near, he vanishes, leaving behind only the faint scent of salt and oil. One visitor recounted taking a photograph of the lens at dusk, only to later find a translucent figure standing near it, looking out to sea. The most common apparition, however, is the keeper who appears on the balcony. People walking along the beach at twilight have seen him standing there, a tall silhouette against the fading sky. He doesn't move or wave, he simply stares out over the restless ocean, as if searching for something beyond the horizon. Some say that when lightning flashes or fog thickens, you can see his figure illuminated and brief, ghostly detail of his hands gripping the rail, his coat flapping in the wind. Then, in the next moment, he is gone. Local legend ties these sightings to a tragic story that occurred generations ago. The most widely told version speaks of a keeper named Elijah, who served at Cape Hatteras during a violent storm in the late 1800s. The wind howled for days, the waves pounding the shore with relentless fury. Despite the danger, Elijah remained at his post, determined to keep the light burning for ships battling the tempest. At the height of the storm, he went out onto the balcony to secure part of the lantern mechanism that had come loose. The gale struck with such force that it tore him from the railing, casting him into the darkness below. His body was never recovered, swallowed by the sea he had spent his life protecting others from. Ever since that night, locals have claimed that Elijah's spirit continues to watch over the lighthouse. Even after automation replaced human keepers, reports of ghostly activity persisted. The light itself has been known to flicker or flare at unusual times, especially during coastal storms. Some say that when the weather turns rough, the beam grows brighter, as though the spirit of the lost keeper is taking control once more, warning sailors away from danger. Maintenance workers and park rangers who tend to the lighthouse today also tell unsettling stories. Tools left neatly on a shelf are sometimes found rearranged the next morning. Doors creak open and shut without a trace of wind. One ranger recalled hearing someone humming an old sea tune while he was alone at the site after dark. The voice drifted from the top of the tower, slow and melodic, fading as he approached the stairs. When he reached the lantern room, it was empty, though the smell of oil and smoke lingered in the air. There are also those who claim to feel an unseen presence while climbing the lighthouse. Visitors describe the sensation of being watched, a chill that follows them from one landing to the next. Some report a gentle push on their back or shoulder, as though urging them upward, perhaps a remnant of the keeper as old duty to ensure the light was always tended. Others feel a sudden drop in temperature when reaching the top, accompanied by a sense of both awe and sorrow. It is as if the spirit of Elijah stands beside them, still fulfilling his eternal vigil. Even on calm days, when the sky is clear and the air is still, the lighthouse holds a quiet tension. Photographers sometimes capture orbs of light hovering in the stairwell or faint shapes reflected in the glass. Tour guides who lead evening tours speak of hearing wisps of words too faint to understand, but filled with a tone of warning. Some guests acclaim that the ghostly keeper's footsteps echo more loudly when storms approach, as though he knows the danger ahead and grows restless. The story of Cape Hatteras Lighthouse is one of devotion, tragedy, and persistence beyond death. Whether Elijah's spirit truly remains or not, the tales endure, passed down by generations who have felt the weight of his presence. To this day, when the fog rolls in and the sea begins to roar, visitors standing on the beach can sometimes see a faint figure high on the balcony, watching over the waves. The light continues to shine, steady and strong. And locals say that as long as it does, the spirit of the lost keeper remains, faithful to his duty, guarding sailors from the perils of the sea. Even in the afterlife, the spirit of the lost keeper remains, watching over the waves. The light continues to shine, steady and strong. And locals say that as long as it does, the spirit of the lost keeper remains, faithful to his duty, guarding sailors from the perils of the sea. Even in the afterlife, the Bodie Island Lighthouse, standing tall and solitary near Nags Head, North Carolina, is surrounded by fog, marshland, and a sense of quiet isolation. Its black and white bands rise above the coastal plain, a beacon for ships navigating the dangerous waters of the Outer Banks. To many, it is simply a landmark of maritime history. But to those who have lingered near its base after dark or climbed its narrow staircase on a misty morning, Bodie Island is something more, a place where the past refuses to fade, and where one restless spirit still walks the halls of duty long after life has left him. Locals often speak of the fog that gathers thick and low around the lighthouse, wrapping it in an eerie stillness. On some nights, the fog is so dense that it seems alive, curling around the iron railing of the balcony and swallowing the sound of the ocean beyond. Travelers who have ventured close say that this is when the haunting begins. The lighthouse, usually peaceful, becomes filled with inexplicable noisesa, the slow creak of doors, the soft thud of boots on metal stairs, and the distant clank of tools being set down by unseen hands. At first, he thought another early visitor had arrived, perhaps a ranger checking the light. But when he entered, the spiral staircase was empty. The sound continued above him, one step at a time, deliberate and rhythmic, climbing upward until it faded near the lantern room. He followed, his heart pounding with curiosity and unease. When he reached the top, the door to the balcony swung open on its own, letting in a rush of cold, salty wind. Outside, he saw nothing but foga, and yet he could have sworn he felt someone standing just beyond the threshold, watching the sea. A man known for his devotion to the light. Nights were long and lonely, the storms relentless, tending the flame, polishing the lens, and making sure the light shone clear across the dark water, who served here for nearly 20 years before his mysterious death. Some say he fell while repairing the railing during a storm. Others claim he vanished one foggy night, leaving behind only his boots and lantern at the base of the stairs. Since then, strange occurrences have continued. Visitors often report seeing a tall shadow pacing the lantern room at odd hours, as though inspecting the mechanism. Even after the lighthouse was automated and human keepers were no longer needed, the light seemed to flare to life unexpectedly during storms, shining brighter than usual. Engineers who examined it found no malfunction. Locals believe Ida Esalasa as spirit still doing his job, keeping the light alive to warn ships from the treacherous shoals. Rangers stationed near the site have shared similar experiences. Some claim that when the wind howls through the marshes, they hear the faint sound of a man humming a slow, mournful tune that echoes up through the tower. One ranger recounted locking up the lighthouse of the night, only to return in the morning and find the door at the top unlatched. Inside, a faint footprint trailed across the dust-covered floor, ending abruptly near the lantern glass. Another time, a worker felt a strong hand grip his shoulder while he was adjusting the lens. When he turned, no one was there, yet the air had turned so cold that his breath fogged the glass. Tourists, too, have felt the chill of the unseen keeper's presence. Those who climb the stairs during guided tours often describe a sudden drop in temperature halfway up, as if someone is standing just ahead of them. Some have seen a figure in a dark coat watching from the balcony tall, still and almost transparent. Cameras malfunction at the top. Flashes refuse to fire. Batteries die without warning. And yet photos sometimes reveal a faint silhouette against the sky, one that no one recalls seeing in person. On nights when storms sweep in from the Atlantic, the Bodie Island Lighthouse becomes especially active. Locals who live nearby say they have seen the light burning through the fog, even when it was supposed to be turned off for maintenance. Others have heard the echo of a door slamming again and again, followed by footsteps pacing the gallery, swearing they saw a figure standing on the balcony, holding a lantern and facing the sea, and the whispering sound of rain. Others think he lingers out of sorrow, forever tied to the place that defined his life. Even skeptics admit that the atmosphere there is unlike anywhere else. The marshes stretch endlessly. The cries of seabirds echo through the mist, and the wind carries voices that sometimes sound almost human. Maintenance crews still find doors open when they should be locked. Visitors still hear the echo of boots on metal. And when the fog thickens enough to obscure the horizon, many claim to see a lone figure walking the balcony, lantern in hand, his face turned toward the dark water. The light may now be automated, but the spirit that guards it is anything but mechanical. To this day, the Bodie Island Lighthouse stands as both a guide and a grave marker, a monument to those who kept the flame alive, and to one keeper whose devotion transcended death itself. When the fog rolls in and the wind begins to moan through the marsh, the living step aside, knowing that the ghostly keeper Bodie Island is once again making his rounds, ensuring the light still burns through the darkness. The Currituck Beach Lighthouse in Corolla, North Carolina, rises tall and red against the endless stretch of dunes and ocean. Its unpainted brick exterior stands in quiet contrast to the whitewashed towers along the Outer Banks, giving it an almost solemn presence. To travelers, Ida as a symbol of endurance, a sentinel watching over the ever-changing coastline. But to locals, the Currituck Lighthouse is more than a monument of maritime history. Ida as a place where the air grows heavy after dark, where the faint jingle of keys and the sound of slow footsteps echo through the spiral stairwell, long after the living have gone home. For over a century, the lighthouse has stood guard against the Atlantica's fury. When it was first lit in 1875, its beams stretched 20 miles across the water, warning sailors of the treacherous shoals known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. Keeping that light burning was a task of isolation and devotion, a life ruled by storms, silence, and the constant threat of the sea. The men who tended the light were known for their discipline and resilience, but one, they say, never truly left his post. He served at Currituck during the late 1800s, a man known for his precision and dedication. Locals recalled seeing him on foggy mornings, lantern in hand, inspecting the base of the tower or climbing the iron staircase to polish the lens. He kept his keys always at his side, tied to a leather strap on his belt, a habit that would become a haunting clue in the years to come. On one stormy night in 1892, a gale swept across the Outer Banks, fierce enough to rattle windows and send waves crashing over the dunes. The wind howled through the pine trees, and rain battered the lantern glass above. According to records, McAllister was alone in the tower that evening, his assistant away tending to a family emergency. He was last seen just after nightfall, climbing the staircase to relight the lamp as the storm rolled in. When morning came, the light was still burning, but McAllister was gone. His coat was found draped neatly over a chair near the base, his boots by the door. The lantern was full of oil, the lens spotless, as if it completed its duty before vanishing. The only sign of him was a single wet footprint halfway up the stairs, leading toward the top, but fading before it reached the lantern room. A search party combed the nearby dunes and shoreline for days, but no body was ever recovered. Since that night, the lighthouse has never truly been silent. Visitors and keepers who followed reported strange occurrences, a faint jingling sounds, like a ring of keys clinking together in motion, echoing to the spiral stairs when no one else was present. Some have seen a flicker of light darting along the walls, as if a lantern were being carried upward. Others speak of the unmistakable sound of footsteps, a steady, deliberate, and climbing and stopping only at the top before a sudden stillness descends. In the early 20th century, a new keeper wrote in his journal about an encounter that left him shaken. While making his rounds late one night, he heard movement above him. Thinking an intruder had entered, he called out, but there was no response. When he reached the lantern room, he felt a sudden drop in temperature. His breath clouded in the air, and behind him came the faint metallic clink of keys. He turned sharply, lantern raised, but saw only the reflection of his own light in the glass. The next morning, the keys he had left hanging near the logbook were gone, only to reappear later, resting neatly beside the lantern wick as if returned by an unseen hand. Modern visitors have their own accounts. Tourists climbing the 214 steps sometimes report a feeling of being watched, an unseen presence following them upward. Some claim that their flashlights flicker as they near the top, or that the air grows inexplicably cold near the lantern room. One woman said she felt a distinct pressure on her shoulder, like someone steadying her from behind But when she turned, she was alone. Park staff have tried to dismiss the stories as imagination, drafts, or echoes in the old structure. But even the most skeptical admit that the tower has its moments. Electric lights flicker without cause. Doors, long secured by heavy latches, creak open as if moved by a breeze that does not exist. And late at night, those who patrol the grounds sometimes glimpse a dim glow moving along the spiral, a shifting light that vanishes when approached. Locals believe as Thomas McAllister, still tending his post. They say he remains bound to the tower by duty. Unwilling to abandon the light, he once swore to keep burning. During fierce coastal storms, when the sky darkens and lightning flashes across the dunes, some claim to see a tall shadow on the balcony, lantern in hand, peering out toward the restless sea. The light of his lamp flickers once, then fades into the rain. Even today, the keepers who maintain the lighthouse speak of moments when the building seems to awaken a faint echo of footsteps, the ring of unseen keys, or the sharp scent of lamp oil in the air. These things come and go like whispers, leaving behind only a sense of presence, a feeling that someone is still climbing the stairs, still watching over the light. Whether born of legend or truth, the story of the Currituck Beach Lighthouse endures because it feels fitting that a man so devoted to his duty would not abandon it, even in death. And so, when the winds rise and the fog rolls in, visitors who stand at the base of the great red tower sometimes pause, listening to the echoes spiraling above. Somewhere in that endless winding climb, they say, the keeper walks still his keys jingling softly, his cold hand brushing the rail, forever making his rounds beneath the flicker of eternal light. Oak Island Lighthouse stands tall at the edge of Caswell Beach, its stark concrete tower rising against the endless Atlantic horizon. Built in 1958, is one of the youngest lighthouses on the North Carolina coast. Yet, despite its modern design, it carries a legacy as eerie and mysterious as the oldest coastal sentinels. Locals say that within the rhythmic flash of its beam, shadows move, voices whisper, and a spirit walks the catwalk. Forever bound to the duty he could never complete in life. Unlike the picturesque brick towers of the past, Oakislanda's Lighthouse was a product of the modern age, built for function, not beauty. Its gray and black stripes seemed to absorb the light, giving a somber, almost brooding appearance. From its base to the lantern room, 131 metal rungs spiral upward through a hollow chamber. Visitors who climb the tower sometimes describe an unsettling sensation, a presence that seems to follow, matching their ascent with faint footsteps echoing just behind. During the day, the lighthouse stands silent, its view of the Cape Fear River and the Atlantic drawing tourists and photographers. But after sunset, when the ocean wind picks up and the waves crash against the shore, Oak Island changes. Locals have long spoken of strange lights flickering around the tower, ghostly lanterns swinging in the night breeze, their glow appearing and vanishing without explanation. Some say they have seen a man walking along the catwalk high above, his form faint, illuminated briefly by the Beacona's sweeping light before fading into darkness. The legend traces back to the early 1960s, just a few years after the lighthouse was first lit. At the time, a man named Samuel Greer served as one of the keepers, though technically his title was a Coast Guard watchman today. Greer was known to be meticulous, a veteran seaman who had spent decades guiding ships and maintaining lights along the Carolina coast. He took his duties seriously, always keeping equipment in perfect order, the lamp spotless, the timing of the flashes precise to the second. But Greer carried a heavy weight from his past day. Years before his service at Oak Island, he had worked aboard a coastal patrol vessel. One stormy night, the ship encountered trouble just off the very stretch of coast he would later guard. The distress signal went unanswered for crucial minutes, and by the time help arrived, the ship had already gone under. Several crewmen perished, men Greer had served with, men he had called friends. Though the tragedy wasn't Tia's fault, he never forgave himself for the failure. Those close to him said he became obsessed with his work after being assigned Oak Island. He would climb the tower at all hours, even when off duty, checking the light, polishing the lens, listening to the steady hum of the beacon. It was as if he feared that another ship might be lost, that another life might be claimed by the sea under his watch. Then one night, a storm rolled in from the east, fierce and sudden. Witnesses later said they saw the light flicker briefly, just once, before returning to normal. But when morning came, Greer was gone. His tools were still neatly arranged at the top of the tower. The official report listed him as a missing, presumed lost, perhaps swept away by the wind or pulled into the raging surf below. But the townspeople whispered a different story, that Greer had never left at all. Soon after his disappearance, the lighthouse keepers began to report strange occurrences. Doors would slam in the middle of the night, even when the air was perfectly still. The faint murmur of a man's voice could sometimes be heard echoing in the stairwell, though no one could make out the words. Maintenance workers described hearing metal tools clinking high above them, as if someone were still at work in the lantern room. Tourists who climbed the tower claimed to feel a sudden chill halfway up, the temperature dropping as if they had stepped through an invisible curtain of cold air. Some described hearing the distant sound of waves from inside the tower, even on calm days when the sea lay quiet beyond the dunes. The most unsettling encounters occurred on windy nights. Locals walking along Caswell Beach have often reported seeing a faint, shifting light high on the tower, not from a modern beacon, but from what looked like a handheld lantern swaying gently. Occasionally, the silhouette of a man in an old maritime uniform can be seen pacing the catwalk, his form outlined briefly by the flash of the light before vanishing into the shadows. Those who have seen him describe the figure as tall, broad-shouldered, his cap tilted low. Sometimes he appears to pause, looking out over the ocean, as if searching for something in the dark. A few claim they have heard his voice carried on the wind, low and mournful, repeating a single phrase that no one can quite decipher. The Coast Guard eventually automated the lighthouse, eliminating the need for a full-time keeper. But workers who return from maintenance still talk about uneasy moments, the feeling of eyes watching from the top of the stairs, or the clang of a metal door that no one remembers opening. One technician swore that while testing the light one evening, he saw a shadow pass across the glass of the lantern room A. But when he climbed to check, the chamber was empty. Over the years, paranormal investigators have visited Oak Island, capturing recordings of faint whispers, sudden bursts of static, and unexplained temperature drops. Some believe Greer remains at his post, a spirit bound by guilt and devotion, endlessly ensuring that the light continues to shine for sailors passing in the night. Locals say that during heavy storms, when the sea churns and thunder rolls across the beach, you can still glimpse him, the ghostly keeper, lantern in hand, pacing the catwalk, as if guiding lost souls to safety. Even in death, Samuel Greer's vigil endures. His spirit, they say, will never abandon the light, for in his eyes there are still ships to save, still storms to weather, and still a promise to keep. Against the endless Atlantic night, Cape Lookout Lighthouse rises tall and stark against the endless expanse of sand and sea, its black and white diamond pattern standing as a beacon of warning and endurance on the remote southern outer banks of North Carolina. For over a century and a half, its light has cut through the fog and storms, guiding sailors away from the deadly shoals that earned the region the name a graveyard of the Atlantic, Yet, beneath its noble duty lies a darker legend, one of devotion, sacrifice, and restless spirits who refuse to leave their post long after their bodies have turned to dust. The isolation of Cape Lookout is almost otherworldly. The lighthouse stands on an uninhabited stretch of land, accessible only by boat, surrounded by dunes that shift with every gust of wind. The constant roar of the surf is the only companion for those who spend nights there. Even today, when the modern light flashes automatically through the night, visitors swear that the air feels heavy, filled with echoes of the past, and the faint murmur of those who once walked the tower's steps. In the years before automation, keeping the light at Cape Lookout was not merely a job, It was a life of isolation and endurance. The keepers who serve here face storms that could tear apart ships and shake the very ground beneath their feet. Supplies came infrequently. Communication with the mainland was limited, and the constant wind and salt eroded everything, from tools to spirit. Yet the keepers were bound to their duty, to keep the light burning, no matter what. The first keeper, Thomas Gaskins, began his post in the mid-1800s when the current lighthouse replaced an earlier structure. He was known for his stoic discipline, rarely leaving the island except for provisions. Locals said he had a habit of pacing the catwalk at night, scanning the dark horizon even when the weather was calm. His devotion, however, would become his undoing. In the winter of 1861, a fierce nor'easter struck the coast. The wind howled for days, waves crashing so high they sprayed the lantern room glass. When the storm subsided, the lighthouse still stood, but Gaskins was gone. His assistants found his coat neatly folded at the base of the stairs, his lantern extinguished by water. Some claimed he'd gone out to secure the shutters during the storm and never returned, swept away by the sea. Others whispered that he fell from the catwalk, dragged into the waves below. No body was ever found. Soon after, strange occurrences began. The next keeper, a man named Harlan Pike, reported hearing footsteps in the tower at night when he was alone. They climbed the stairs slowly and deliberately, pausing near the top before fading away. Pike would rush to check, only to find the lantern room empty. On foggy nights, he claimed to see a faint light moving through the dunes, as though someone were walking with a lantern near the shore. Over the decades, the pattern continued. Keepers came and went, but all spoke of the same phenomena, a phantom light swinging in the darkness, footsteps echoing in the stairwell, and soft murmurs drifting through the halls of the keeper's quarters. Some said they could hear faint warnings whispered just before a storm, low, indistinct voices that seemed to rise from the walls themselves, urging them to check the lighter or prepare the lantern. By the early 1900s, Cape Lookout had claimed more than one life. One assistant keeper fell ill and died on the island, unable to reach medical help. Another slipped from the ladder while cleaning the lens and broke his neck. A third was lost during a hurricane, his body discovered days later tangled in driftwood miles down the coast. With each tragedy, the legend grew stronger that the souls of the keepers who perished on duty remained bound to the lighthouse, united in their eternal vigil. Visitors today often describe a strange atmosphere upon entering the tower. The metal stairs echo with every footstep, yet sometimes there is a second sound to the faint tread of unseen boots ascending alongside them. Others speak of the sudden scent of oil or smoke, though the lamp has long been electric. At night, when the wind sweeps across the dunes, the lighthouse seems to hum a deep, resonant tone that vibrates through the structure like a living heartbeat. Several park rangers and restoration workers have reported encounters they cannot explain. One ranger, locking up for the night, said he heard the door above him creak open, though he was certain no one else was inside. As he looked up the spiral, he saw a flicker of light near the top, a glow that moved as if carried by hand. Another worker described hearing faint voices over the roar of the wind, two men talking softly, their words muffled but urgent. When he called out, the voices stopped, leaving only silence and the steady flash of the beacon. Perhaps the most chilling reports come from those who spend the night nearby. Campers along the beach have watched what appears to be a dim lantern light moving inside the tower after Ida has been locked and secured. Some claim to see a shadow pacing the catwalk, a solitary figure stopping to gaze out at the ocean before disappearing as the beam turns. Locals say that when storms approach, the haunting grows stronger. As thunder rolls over the waves and lightning splits the horizon, the footsteps return. The phantom lanterns swing once more in the dark, and low murmurs can be heard drifting down the staircase, warnings, perhaps, from the keepers who died doing what they loved most. Though no living soul tends a Cape Lookout light today, its flame and now automated continues to burn. And many believe Theta S because Ida S not entirely unattended. The spirits of those who gave their lives to the sea still linger, ensuring that the beacon never fails, that no ship goes unguarded. Even now, when the wind rises and the surf crashes hard against the shore, some say they can hear the faint toll of a lantern chain and the shuffle of boots on the stairwell. The keepers of Cape Lookout, it seems, still walk the tower, forever guarding the coast. Their duty eternal, their light undying in the restless dark. Currituck Lighthouse, standing proudly on the sand of Corolla Beach, North Carolina, has long been a beacon of light and safety for sailors navigating the treacherous waters of the Outer Banks. Its unpainted brick tower, rising 162 feet into the coastal sky, is visible for miles, guiding ships past shifting shoals and hidden sandbars. But while the lighthouse is admired by day for its stately design and historical significance, it takes on a far more mysterious and unsettling presence at night. Locals and visitors alike have long spoken of ghostly figures, unexplained sounds, and inexplicable touches that suggest the spirits of those who once tended the light have never truly left. The history of the lighthouse itself is steeped in both perseverance and tragedy. First lit in 1875, Currituck Lighthouse replaced earlier, shorter structures that failed to warn sailors effectively. From its earliest days, keeping the light burning was no easy task. The keepers who lived there faced isolation, extreme weather, and the constant responsibility of ensuring the lamp remained operational. Many devoted themselves entirely to the lighthouse, sometimes at the cost of their own safety. Several keepers are rumored to have vanished during violent hurricanes, their bodies never recovered, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of their dedication. Visitors today describe an atmosphere that is heavy with anticipation and unease after dark. The spiral stairwell, which winds tightly from the base to the lantern room, is often the epicenter of strange occurrences. Some report feeling a sudden coldness as they ascend, a chill that seems to follow them step by step. Shadows have been glimpsed moving along the walls, and more than one observer has claimed to see the brief, translucent outline of a man in a keeper's uniform, gripping the railing as he climbs. Others have felt ghostly hands press lightly against their own as they near the top, as if guiding Thema or warning Thema before disappearing as quickly as they appeared. The most common phenomena involve sound. Visitors frequently hear whisper voices echoing through the stairwell, faint enough to make out no words but distinct in tone and intent. Some describe it as a low murmur, like two people conversing softly, while others say it as a single voice calling warnings or instructions, repeating them over and over. Occasionally, these whispers are accompanied by the soft clinking of metal, as if lanterns or keys were being handled by invisible hands. The noises seem to have no source, yet they are consistent enough to convince even skeptical observers that the lighthouse is far from empty. Sightings of apparitions often coincide with the approach of storms. Locals say that on nights when hurricanes or tropical storms sweep down the coast, the spiral staircase comes alive with movement. Shadows are seen pacing carefully, hands touching the railing, and sometimes a faint light glimmers from the lantern room, as though a keeper performing last-minute checks on the lamp. Witnesses describe a figure pausing at the top, looking out toward the horizon, as if scanning the sea for ships in danger or monitoring the progress of the storm. Then, just as suddenly as it appears, the figure vanishes, leaving only the echo of footsteps that slowly fade away. Park rangers and maintenance crews who have worked at Currituck Lighthouse recount their own eerie experiences. One ranger reported locking the tower for the night, only to return in the morning, and find that several items he had left secured in the keeper's quarters were displaced. Doors slightly ajar and footprints on the floor that matched no living person. Another staff member recounted hearing the low murmur of voices while climbing the stairwell alone when he reached the lantern room. The space was empty, but the air felt charged, almost electric, and the temperature had dropped sharply. The stories of ghostly hands are particularly unsettling. Some visitors report feeling a light pressure on their shoulders or back as they navigate the staircase, like someone is steadying them or ensuring they don't lose their footing. At first, many assume Ida as the wind or their own imagination, but when multiple people experience the same sensation at the same location in the tower, doubt creeps in. Occasionally, these touches are accompanied by a fleeting shadow, moving along the wall in tandem with the unseen presence. The phenomenon is widely believed to be connected to the fates of the keepers who disappeared during violent weather. Hurricanes were a constant threat along the Outer Banks, and keepers were often trapped in the tower while storms raged outside. Some never emerged, leaving the building permanently linked with tragedy. According to local legend, these spirits remained devoted to their duty, patrolling the staircase, checking the lamp, and watching over the waters they once guided sailors across. Their presence is said to serve as both a warning and a reassurance. The light continues to shine, but only because the souls of the keepers still walk its steps. Visitors who stay near the lighthouse after dark often remark on the sense of being watched. The tower seems alive, its brick walls vibrating with faint echoes of the past. Even when the structure is empty, the air carries an almost tangible weight, as though the spirits of the long-dead keepers are moving quietly, tending their post as they always did. The combination of sound, shadow, and sudden cold ensures that no one underestimates the power and persistence of the Lighthouses' haunted history. Currituck Lighthouse remains a symbol of guidance and vigilance, but it is also a monument to devotion that extends beyond the grave. As the beam sweeps across the sand and surf each night, some say that the steps are never truly empty, that the spiral staircase is alive with the presence of those who gave their lives to keep the light burning. Shadowy figures pacing, ghostly hands guiding the way, and whispered warnings serve as a reminder that the spirits of the keepers of Currituck Lighthouse are still climbing the tower, ensuring that sailors at sea and visitors on shore are never left in darkness. Cape Fear Lighthouse rises stoically above the sands of Courtney Beach, North Carolina, its white tower a solemn sentinel over one of the most dangerous stretches of the Atlantic coast. For centuries, this area has been infamous for shipwrecks, earning a reputation among sailors as part of the graveyard of the Atlantic. The lighthouse was built to guide vessels safely through treacherous shoals. But it has also become a place where the line between the living and the dead seems blurred. Those who visit after dark often report eerie phenomena, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, doors swinging open on their own, and shadows flitting across the lantern room. Locals say the lighthouse is watched over by a spirit, a former keeper who never abandoned his post, even in death. The history of Cape Fear Lighthouse is intertwined with the perilous Atlantic waters it overlooks. In its early years, shipwrecks were common, and lighthouse keepers had a grave responsibility to ensure the lamp burned continuously, guiding vessels through fog, storms, and night. One keeper, whose name is lost to history but whose legend endures, was especially devoted to his duty. He lived alone in the keeper S quarters, tending the light meticulously, polishing the lens, and climbing the spiral staircase countless times each night to inspect the lantern. Sailors relied on the steady beam to avoid the jagged shoals, yet despite his vigilance, ships continued to fall victim to the shifting sands and treacherous currents. Tragedy struck one stormy night when the keeper was attempting to signal a ship that had gone off course. The fog was dense, the wind sharp, and waves crashed violently against the shoreline. It is said that in his efforts to guide the vessel, he fell from the catwalk outside the lantern room and vanished into the night. Some claim he went into the storm intentionally, unwilling to leave the lamp unguarded. The ship itself disappeared as well, and the bodies of both sailor and keeper were never recovered. After that night, Cape Fear Lighthouse was never quite the same. Visitors and explorers have long reported strange experiences at the lighthouse, particularly on foggy nights. Many describe hearing phantom footsteps on the spiral stairs, as slow, deliberate steps that seem to follow them as they climb. Others report that doors, tightly latched moments before, swing open without warning, sometimes slamming shut with sudden gusts that appears to come from nowhere. The lantern room, normally quiet when unattended, is said to be haunted by shadows moving along the walls, as though someone is inspecting the lamp or pacing vigilantly along the walkway. Some of the most unsettling reports involve sound. Guests walking the beach near the lighthouse have occasionally heard faint, distant bells ringing, though no ship is present. Inside the tower, low murmurs echo down the stairwell, a soft voice warning of dangers approaching, instructing keepers to check the light or secure the shutters. One visitor described hearing the metallic clink of keys moving in the dark, as if someone were unlocking doors, though every lock had been secured hours before. A few explorers claimed to have seen a tall figure in an old keeper's uniform near the lantern room at night. The figure is always slightly translucent, illuminated occasionally by the lighthouse beam as it sweeps across the beach. Some say the apparition pauses to peer out at the waves, scanning for ships in distress, before vanishing into the shadows. Others report feeling a cold hand brush their shoulder, a subtle but undeniable touch that warns or guides, just as a keeper would for a sailor navigating the storm. The lighthouse keepers who have worked at Cape Fear in modern times recount similar experiences. One maintenance worker, securing the tower for night, heard footsteps on the stairs above him, though he was alone. When he climbed to investigate, the staircase was empty, but a sudden drop in temperature made him shiver. Another ranger reported the faint smell of oil and smoke in the lantern room. Even though the light is now electrically powered and had long been automated, many believe that the spirit haunting Cape Fear Lighthouse is bound by duty. The tragic circumstances of a keeper's death, coupled with his relentless devotion to guiding ships, tether him to the tower. Locals say that on nights when fog blankets the beach and storms stir the surf, the light seems to burn brighter than usual, as if the ghostly keeper is climbing the stairs, inspecting the lantern, and ensuring the beam reaches every corner of the dark sea. Over the years, stories have spread of ghostly encounters. Sudden shadows pacing the catwalk, doors slamming inexplicably, and the echo of footsteps that fade only when the observer leaves the tower. The lighthouse, once a purely functional structure, has taken on a reputation as a place where the past lingers. Many visitors leave with an uneasy feeling, sensing that someone or something remains vigilant. Watching over the waters as faithfully as they ever did in life. Even today, Cape Fear Lighthouse stands as both a beacon and a monument to devotion. The light sweeps across the beach and the sea each night, its beam cutting through the darkness. But it is not merely the mechanism that keeps it shining. Many believe the ghostly keeper still patrols the tower, climbing the spiral stairs, inspecting the lantern, and listening for ships in peril. The footsteps, the shadows, and the distant ringing of bells are reminders that some spirits never rest, especially those whose lives were devoted to guiding others through the storm. To those who venture to Cape Fear after dusk, the Lighthouse is more than a historical site. It is a place where time feels suspended, where the sea speaks in whispers, and where a devoted soul continues a duty. That death could not end. Whether seen, heard, or merely felt in the chill of the air, the presence of the former keeper endures a silent guardian of the coast, eternally tending the light for ships that never return. Bodie Island, part of the Currituck Banks in North Carolina, is a place where history and the supernatural seem to intertwine. While the iconic Bodie Island Lighthouse draws most visitors with its striking black and white spiral stripes and commanding views over the marshes, the surrounding grounds hold a quieter, more unsettling presence. Over the years, countless explorers and visitors have reported strange occurrences in the outbuildings, the keeper quarters, and the pathways leading to the tower. These tales speak of footsteps in empty halls, flickering lights, and shadowy figures that appear and vanish as if walking between the realms of the living and the dead. The lighthouse itself was first lit in 1872, replacing earlier towers that succumbed to erosion and the harsh coastal environment. Its purpose was simple yet critical: guide ships safely past the dangerous shoals and marshes that line the Outer Banks. Life for the lighthouse keepers was demanding. The isolated location meant that supplies were delivered infrequently. Communication with the mainland was limited, and storms could turn routine nights into dangerous, tense ordeals. Keepers devoted themselves entirely to their duty, knowing that a single lapse could result in tragedy at sea. Many of these men spent years here, and several never returned from hurricanes or accidents, leaving the buildings and the tower imbued with stories of loss and lingering presence. Visitors to the site often report a distinct change in atmosphere as they approach the outbuildings surrounding the lighthouse. These small brick and wooden structures, once used to store supplies or house key purse families, now feel oddly still, yet alive with unseen motion. Footsteps are commonly heard echoing across the hallways, slow and deliberate, as though someone is performing an unseen inspection. Occasionally, doors open on their own, swinging gently despite the absence of any breeze. Lights flicker in the dead of night, and sometimes a faint glow seems to hover above the staircase, like a lantern carried by a ghostly hand. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena. Witnesses have described seeing silhouettes moving along balconies or appearing from upper windows. Some believe these figures are the spirits of keepers who perished while performing their duties, eternally tied to the lighthouse they once tended, rarely threatening, instead seeming intent on their work, as they're continuing their vigilant patrol of the tower and its grounds, ensuring the light never falters. One of the more peculiar experiences reported by visitors is the sound of humming. On calm nights, when the marshes lie silent and the Oceana-esque waves seem distant, the faint melody of a sea shanty drifts through the air. Explorers describe hearing the tune rise and fall, echoing down stairwells and across hallways. Many claim it is the phantom keeper, keeping rhythm with his unseen tasks, polishing the lantern, checking the lamp-ass mechanisms, or walking along the balcony. In addition to sounds and visual apparitions, the Bodie Island grounds are known for sudden drops in temperature. Visitors often report feeling chills that are inexplicable, sometimes accompanied by the sensation of being watched. The brushes of invisible hands on shoulders, the quick movements of shadows at the edges of vision, and the sense that someone is pacing just out of reach all contribute to the eerie atmosphere. These sensations are often strongest near the original keeper-esque quarters and the spiral staircase leading to the top of the lighthouse, where the duties of the keepers were most concentrated. Many of the outbuildings now serve as visitor centers or interpretive spaces, but even these modern uses have not dispelled the reports of paranormal activity. Staff have recounted seeing tools arranged differently than they left them, hearing footsteps when no one else is present, and experiencing the same humming that tourists describe. Even researchers equipped with cameras and recording equipment often capture anomalies, unexplained shadows, faint orbs of light, and intermittent noises with no discernible source. Stormy nights seem to intensify the haunting. When the wind sweeps across the marshes and the waves crash against the dunes, visitors have reported that the lighthouse appears almost alive. The swinging of old doors, the flicker of distant lights, and the echo of footsteps create the impression that the keepers are performing their nightly rounds, preparing for ships that may never come. Shadowy figures pace the balcony or appear at the top of the staircase, pausing briefly to look out toward the ocean before fading into darkness. Despite the eerie tales, many visitors feel a sense of reverence rather than fear. The Bodhi Island spirits, according to local lore, are tied not only to tragedy but to duty and devotion. They are keepers in the truest sense, ensuring that the light continues to shine over the outer banks. For those who venture to Bodhi Island after dusk, the experience is unforgettable. The tower looms against the night sky. The outbuilding sits silent yet seemingly alive, and the marshes stretch endlessly toward the horizon. Visitors often pause at the base of the lighthouse, listening to the faint sounds of footsteps or the gentle hum of song drifting through the night air, wondering who still walks the halls, who still tends a light, and who remains bound by duty long after the living have gone. Bodhi Island, with its lighthouses and haunted outbuildings, continues to be a place where history, mystery, and devotion converge, leaving a lingering impression on all who witness its spectral guardians. Oak Island, located at Caswell Beach along the North Carolina coast, is known for more than its towering lighthouse and sweeping views of the Atlantic. Beyond the light itself, the surrounding structures, including the old pier and adjacent buildings, hold a quieter but persistent presence, one that seems rooted in tragedy, duty, and the restless spirits of those who once tended the shore. Visitors and explorers have long reported strange phenomena, from swinging phantom lanterns to whispers that drift along empty catwalks. Many believe that these spectral occurrences are the lingering presence of a lighthouse keeper who died trying to prevent a shipwreck, forever bound to his post and the safety of those at sea. The pier, extending into the churning Atlantic waters, was once a hub of activity. Keepers and assistants stored supplies, monitored boats, and maintained the mechanisms that powered the lighthouse. Today, the wooden beams creak with the weight of years and salt, and the structures appear abandoned, yet they are far from empty. Today, the structures appear abandoned, yet they are far from empty. Those who venture near the pier after dark often report a sense of being watched, a heaviness in the air that suggests unseen eyes observing from shadow corners. Footsteps echo across the wooden planks when no one is there, and the faint sound of movement in upper levels hints at a presence long thought gone. Phantom lanterns are a frequent occurrence along the pier and in the surrounding buildings. Visitors describe seeing a dim, swinging light floating through abandoned rooms or hovering near railings, casting moving shadows on the walls. Visitors describe seeing a dim, swinging light floating through abandoned rooms or hovering near railings, casting moving shadows on the walls. These apparitions are often described as steady and purposeful, moving with the intention of guiding or illuminating, rather than merely flickering randomly. Some witnesses have suggested that these are the lanterns of the keeper who once walked these halls, his spectral vigilance continuing long after death, ensuring that the light remains a beacon against the dangers of the Atlantic. Whispers are another hallmark of the hauntings at Oak Island. Explorers report faint voices drifting along the catwalk, sometimes repeating phrases that seem like warnings or instructions. The tone is low and deliberate, carrying a sense of urgency as if the speaker is performing a critical task. At times, the whispers are accompanied by subtle sounds of movement, the scraping of footsteps along wooden floors, or the clink of metal chains, giving the impression that someone is pacing the structure, checking and rechecking each step of their nightly rounds. Some of the most unsettling encounters involve shadowy figures seen in places that no longer exist. On more than one occasion, visitors climbing the remaining stairs have reported seeing a dark silhouette ascending flights of stairs that have long since been removed. The figure appears focused, almost methodical, as if carrying out a duty that transcends physical limitations. Those who try to follow or approach the shadow find that it disappears before they reach it, leaving only the empty staircase behind and the echo of footsteps fading into the night. Decades ago, a storm threatened to drive a ship onto the nearby shoals, and the keeper is said to have taken extraordinary measures to prevent the wreck. He climbed the lighthouse and patrolled the pier during the height of the storm, signaling the vessel and adjusting the light, doing everything in his power to avert disaster. In the process, he lost his life, either swept away by the waves or struck by debris. Locals have long maintained that his spirit never left the pier or the lighthouse, continuing the work he could not finish in life, eternally vigilant against the treacherous waters he once guarded. Visitors describe a mixture of fear and awe when experiencing the hauntings. The combination of sound, sight, and atmosphere creates a powerful impression. The swinging lanterns, the distant whispers, and the sense of unseen footsteps all contribute to the feeling that someone is still present, still performing the duties assigned in life. The old pier, weathered and silent during the day, comes alive after sunset, its wooden planks echoing with the rhythm of a spectral routine. Even those who enter during the day report sudden chills, or a fleeting glimpse of movement in the corner of their eye, a subtle reminder that the spirits may be active at any hour. Some explorers have attempted to record these occurrences. Cameras occasionally capture flickers of light or moving shadows that defy explanation, while audio recordings pick up faint murmurs and the sound of footsteps on empty surfaces. While skeptics may attribute these phenomena to wind, creaking wood, or imagination, the consistency of reports from different witnesses over decades suggests something more. Many believe that the pier, with its history of storms and maritime tragedy, has become a place where the dedication and sacrifice of the past remain tangible. The haunting of Oak Island is not violent but protective. The spectral keeper is seen as a guardian, a presence that continues to watch over the pier, the lighthouse, and the Atlantic waters beyond. His lantern swings in the darkness, illuminating the path, and his whispers carry warnings, a quiet vigilance that ensures that no ship is entirely unguarded. The cold touch of invisible hands and the fleeting shadows all reinforce the idea that some duties are too important to be left unfinished. Today, Oak Island and its pier stand as both a historical site and a place of lingering mystery. Tourists, explorers, and paranormal enthusiasts are drawn not only to the Lighthouses' beauty and history, but also to the stories of devotion and spectral guardianship that haunt the surrounding structures. The swings of lanterns in abandoned rooms, the echoes of whispered instructions, and the shadowy figures climbing non-existent stairs all serve as reminders that the line between past and present, life and afterlife, can be surprisingly thin. At Oak Island, the past is never truly gone. The pier, the lanterns, and the whispers all bear witness to a keeper whose duty was not bound by mortality. Even today, in the quiet hours of night, the spirit continues its watch. The spirit continues its watch, eternally vigilant, ensuring that the light remains a beacon, and that the Atlantic waters remain as safe as the ghostly presence allows. Cape Lookout Lighthouse rises from the shifting sands of Shackelford Banks, North Carolina, a sentinel of brick and mortar standing against the relentless Atlantic winds. The lighthouse, painted in its iconic black and white diamond pattern, has guided countless vessels through treacherous waters, warning sailors of shoals, shifting sandbars, and hidden currents. But beyond its role as a beacon, Cape Lookout holds a reputation steeped in mystery and the supernatural. Visitors to the island often report strange and unsettling occurrences, a spectral figures pacing the catwalk, phantom lanterns glowing in empty hallways, and doors that lock and unlock seemingly on their own. For many, the lighthouse is not just a historical landmark, but a place where the dedication of past keepers lives on beyond the veil of death. Built in 1859, the tower replaced earlier structures that had succumbed to storms and erosion. Life for the keepers was far from easy. Isolation, harsh weather, and the unyielding responsibility of maintaining the light demanded constant vigilance. Supplies were delivered sporadically, Communication with the mainland was limited, and the ever-present Atlantic storms could turn a normal evening into a fight for survival. Several keepers and their families endured years of isolation on the island, developing routines that were strict, precise, and often grueling. Those who perished while performing their duties became part of the Lighthouses' enduring legend, their spirits said to continue their watch long after death. Visitors today describe an atmosphere that shifts noticeably as they approach the lighthouse after dark. The air feels heavier, cooler, as though the island itself is aware of unseen eyes watching. On the spiral staircase that winds up the interior of the tower, footsteps can be heard echoing, even when no one else is present. The metallic clang of the railing under unseen hands, soft murmurs that trail through the stairwell, and sudden temperature drops create an uncanny sense that someone or something is accompanying visitors as they ascend. Many accounts focus on the lantern room and the catwalk that encircles it. Spectral figures have been seen walking the catwalk, sometimes pause and peer out toward the ocean, their movements deliberate and precise. Phantom lanterns have been reported glowing in the room, casting light across the walls and floor, though no lamp has been lit. Witnesses describe a faint hum of the soft creak of wood under invisible feet, as if the spirits of past keepers are performing the duties they once held in life. The figures appear attentive rather than menacing, patrolling the area with a purpose, maintaining the lighthouse as if the storms still rage and ships still rely on their watch. Whispers are another common phenomenon reported by visitors. Soft, indistinct voices echo down hallways, often interpreted as warnings. Many describe the sensation that the whispers carry messages about approaching storms, the way the keepers might have communicated long ago, offering caution to anyone who approaches the tower. The voices are faint, almost impossible to capture with audio equipment, yet they leave an impression strong enough to make even the most skeptical visitor pause. The haunting is not limited to the lighthouse interior. The surrounding Shackleford banks are also said to hold lingering energies. Some witnesses report seeing shadowy figures crossing the dunes or walking along the edges of tide pools, disappearing suddenly into the night. Others feel unseen presences brush past them along the boardwalks and access paths, as though the spirits continue to patrol both the lighthouse and the surrounding island. The legend of Cape Lucuda's ghostly keepers is rooted in the reality of past tragedies. Hurricanes, storms, and accidents claimed the lives of several keepers, sometimes while performing routine duties to maintain the light or assist vessels in distress. Their deaths were sudden and often violent, leaving their devotion incomplete in the eyes of those left behind. According to local lore, these spirits remain on the island, ensuring that the light continues to shine, that no ship is left unprotected, and that the Tower's mission endures beyond the mortal lives of those who once climbed its stairs. Modern-day rangers and visitors frequently attest to similar experiences. Objects have been found shifted, doors locked or unlocked without explanation, and faint glows appear near the lantern room during calm nights. Some have felt the subtle brush of a hand on a shoulder, the presence of someone standing just behind them, only to find themselves alone when they turn. The consistency of these experiences over decades reinforces the belief that the lighthouse remains an active site of spectral vigilance. Cape Lookout Lighthouse, with its diamond-patterned tower rising above the sands, is a place where history, duty, and the supernatural converge. The combination of spectral figures, phantom lanterns, whispered warnings, and the shifting energy of Shackleford banks ensures that visitors cannot leave unchanged. The lighthouse is more than a guiding light for sailors. It is a testament to devotion that transcends death, a reminder that some duties are eternal. To those who linger after sunset, the tower is never truly empty. Figures continue their silent patrol, lanterns glow in unseen hands, and whispers warn of dangers on the horizon. On stormy nights, when the winds howl across the sands and waves crash against the shore, the key purse of vigilance is said to intensify. Even in death, they maintain their post, eternally ensuring that Cape Lucuda's light continues to protect the Atlantic waters, guarding both the sea and those who walk the shifting sands of Shackleford banks. The keeper-esque quarters at Currituck Beach Lighthouse stand quietly beside the towering brick beacon, a modest building that once sheltered those tasked with maintaining the light along North Carolina's Outer Banks. Today, the quarters are largely unoccupied, yet they carry an energy that many visitors describe as both eerie and unmistakably present. Over the years, explorers and curious tourists have reported a variety of unexplained phenomena, from furniture shifting on its own to doors slamming in otherwise empty rooms. Shadowy figures are often seen climbing the staircase, and some visitors have felt invisible hands brush against their shoulders or glimpsed the ghostly form of a former keeper standing silently in a corner, watching and waiting. The history of the keeper-esque quarters is inseparable from the history of the lighthouse itself. First lit in 1875, the Currituck Beach Lighthouse replaced smaller, inadequate towers that failed to keep the shoals and shifting sands safe for passing ships. Life for the keepers was isolating and demanding. They were responsible for maintaining the lamp, polishing the lens, keeping the mechanisms operational, and monitoring the surrounding waters for approaching ships in distress. This isolation, combined with the constant responsibility for lives at sea, created an environment of intense vigilance, a vigilance that some say persists beyond the physical lives of the keepers. Chairs may appear slightly moved, or a table that had been perfectly aligned seems to shift overnight. Doors once closed and locked sometimes swing open without explanation, often accompanied by the faint sound of hinges creaking. These occurrences are rarely violent, but they carry a palpable sense of presence, as though someone unseen is moving through the rooms with deliberate intent. Those who have spent time in the quarters report that the disturbances often follow them, with footsteps echoing in hallways and the faint sensation of someone pacing nearby. The staircase within the keeper-esque quarters is a focal point of reported activity. Visitors frequently describe shadowy figures ascending the steps, visible for just a moment before fading into the air. The movement is deliberate, careful, and purposeful, as though the figure is completing a task it has performed countless times. Some explorers have felt cold hands brush their shoulders while climbing, a sudden chill that leaves them shivering and looking around for an explanation. Those who see the ghostly form of a keeper describe a man dressed in the uniform of the time, standing silently at the top of the stairs or near the doorway, observing without motion or sound, as if ensuring the quarters and lighthouse are maintained even in his absence. Sounds are another common phenomenon. Faint murmurs are often heard echoing through the rooms, soft voices that seem to repeat instructions or warnings. Occasionally, the clinking of keys or the distant metallic tap of tools moving along the floor can be heard, though no one is present. These sounds are most frequently reported at night, when the isolation of the quarters is at its most pronounced, and the mind is left to interpret the shadows and echoes in the dark. Some visitors have described hearing the low, rhythmic steps of someone patrolling the hallways, footsteps that begin behind them and continue until they reach the stairwell, only to vanish at the top. The haunting of the Currituck Beach Keepers' quarters is widely believed to be connected to the dedication and sometimes tragic fates of the keepers themselves. Historical records indicate that several keepers and their assistants died while tending the lighthouse, either during storms or from accidents related to their duties. These deaths, sudden and often solitary, left an indelible mark on the building, and local legend holds that the spirits of these keepers continue to patrol the quarters and surrounding grounds. They are not considered malevolent. Rather, they are dutiful and watchful, ensuring the lighthouse remains protected and the lamp continues to shine for those navigating the dangerous waters nearby. Staff and rangers who have spent extended time at the quarters report similar experiences. Some have seen shadows moving just out of the corner of their eye or felt the brush of an unseen hand while handling supplies or walking the halls. These accounts, repeated over decades, suggest that the activity is not the product of imagination, but an enduring presence tied to the history of the lighthouse and its keepers. Stormy nights often amplify the sensation of the haunting. As wind rattles the exterior shutters and waves crash against the nearby shore, the footsteps, whispers, and shifting shadows intensify. Visitors report a heightened sense of being observed, as though the keeper-esque vigilance becomes more urgent during the same nights that once demanded their undivided attention. The quarters, though abandoned, seem to come alive with purpose, reflecting the persistence of those who once called the building home. Currituck Beach Lighthouse and its keeper-esque quarters stand as a testament to dedication and sacrifice. Beyond the brick walls and spiral staircase, the history of the men who maintain the light remains present. The shadowy figures, cold touches, and shifting furniture are reminders that some duties are never truly finished. The key purser presence lingers, quietly patrolling the rooms, climbing the stairs, and ensuring the lighthouse continues to serve its purpose. For those who explore the quarters after dark, the experience is both chilling and awe-inspiring, a connection to the past that remains alive in whispers, footsteps, and the silent watch of spirits devoted to a lifetime of vigilance. The spiral stairwell within Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, rising hundreds of feet above the sand of Buxton, North Carolina, is more than a means to reach the lantern room. It is a focal point for tales of the supernatural. This historic lighthouse, with its black and white stripes sweeping skyward, has long guided ships safely past the treacherous waters of the Outer Banks. Yet it also holds a reputation among visitors and locals as a place where the veil between the living and the dead grows thin. The spiral staircase, winding tightly within the tower, has become a hotspot for paranormal activity, drawing explorers, ghost hunters, and curious tourists alike who report experiences that defy explanation. Visitors often describe an immediate change in atmosphere upon stepping into the stairwell. As they ascend, some report hearing phantom footsteps echoing behind or ahead of them, though the staircase is empty. The sound is often deliberate, measured, almost as if someone is pacing methodically, keeping a silent vigil. Others describe soft whispers, unintelligible at first but suggestive of warnings or instructions. These auditory phenomena are particularly strong in the evenings or on foggy nights, when the lighthouse's isolation and the rhythmic sound of the ocean amplify every creak and murmur. Witnesses describe seeing dark, human-shaped forms glide up or down the spiral staircase, sometimes pausing at landings to glance out of windows or toward the lantern room. These figures are rarely threatening. They often seem absorbed in a task, performing an eternal duty. Some explorers have reported the figures vanishing suddenly when approached, leaving only the empty steps and the lingering sense that someone unseen has just passed by. Occasionally, visitors see a spectral figure ascending the stairs despite the tower being unoccupied. The figure is often described as tall, dressed in the uniform of a lighthouse keeper, moving with careful precision and maintaining the same vigilance that keepers once observed during their lifetimes. The haunting of the spiral stairwell is intertwined with the lighthouse's history and the lives of its keepers. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse has long been a vital beacon along the Outer Banks, a stretch of coastline notorious for shipwrecks and treacherous currents. Keepers live in isolation and face harsh conditions, tending the light night after night, climbing the spiral staircase countless times to inspect a lantern and signaling passing vessels. Several keepers met tragic ends, some succumbing to storms or accidents while performing their duties. According to local legend, the spirits of these devoted men continue patrol the stairwell and the lighthouse, ensuring the lamp remains vigilant and that no ship is left unprotected. Another haunting phenomenon, reported within the stairwell, is the faint ringing of a Shipa-esque bell. Visitors describe the sound as distant but clear, echoing up the tower as though a vessel were signaling or warning from a nearby Atlantic. The Bella-esque toll is intermittent and seems to correlate with periods of heightened spectral activity. Some believe that these auditory experiences are the keeper's own warnings, a residual imprint of the lighthouse's duty to protect ships from danger. The sound often accompanies phantom footsteps or whispers, creating a layered experience that convinces many that the presence is real and purposeful. Explorers have also reported subtle physical sensations. Sudden drops in temperature, the brush of an invisible hand against their arm, and the tingling of goosebumps across the skin are frequently described. The stairwell, narrow and enclosed, amplifies these experiences, making the unseen presence feel immediate and almost tangible. Witnesses often report a heightened sense of being observed, even when they are entirely alone, as if the spirits of former keepers are monitoring the stairwell and those who ascend it. The spiral stairwell is not the only place within Cape Hatteras Lighthouse where supernatural activity occurs, but it is the most concentrated and intense. Its narrow, winding structure, the echoing steps, and the historical significance of the space make it a natural focal point for residual energy. Ghostly phenomena reported here have been remarkably consistent over decades, with numerous visitors, employees, and researchers describing similar experiences. The combination of visual apparitions, auditory phenomena, and tactile sensations creates a compelling case for the presence of lingering spirits dedicated to the lighthouse. Stormy nights intensify the experiences, when fierce winds sweep across the beach and the waves crash with unusual force. The phantom footsteps become more frequent, whispers louder, and the spectral figure more often glimpsed. Some say that during these nights the stairwell becomes a stage, their attention heightened as if real ships were approaching. The vigilance of the living and the dead alike. Cape Hatteras Lighthouse and its spiral stairwell stand as a testament that transcends death. The repeated accounts of footsteps, whispers, spectral figures, and faint ship bells suggest that the lighthouse is not simply a relic of history, but a place where the past remains active. Those who climb the spiral staircase may feel the presence of unseen guardians, performing their nightly rounds long after their mortal lives ended. The lighthouse is not just a beacon for Shipsa, it is a monument to dedication, vigilance, and a lingering spirit that ensures the light continues to shine, guarding the waters of the Outer Banks as faithfully as any living keeper ever could. The lantern room of Bodie Island Lighthouse, perched high above the marshes and coastline of North Carolina-esque Currituck Banks, is more than a beacon for sailors. It is a place where the past and the supernatural converge. Visitors to the lighthouse frequently report strange occurrences that defy explanation, making the lantern room one of the most haunted locations along the Outer Banks. Accounts of ghostly figures polishing glass, standing vigil over the endless sea, flickering lights, and doors that open and close without reason have persisted for decades. These phenomena are widely believed to be the lingering presence of former keepers. Bodie Island Lighthouse, first lit in 1872, was constructed to replace older towers that had been lost to erosion and the shifting sands of the Outer Banks. The keepers assigned to the lighthouse lived in isolation, often with their families, performing arduous tasks day and night, continuing to tend the light and safeguard the waters below. Their responsibilities were simple in concept but exacting in practice. Maintain the lamp, polish the lens, monitor the coastline, and ensure that the beacon never faltered. The Outer Banks were notorious for shipwrecks, and the lives of countless sailors depended on the vigilance of these keepers. Over the years, several keepers perished while performing their duties, victims of storms, accidents, or the relentless challenges of isolated life. Local legend maintains that these men remain in the lantern room, continuing the work they once performed so faithfully. Visitors entering the lantern room often feel an immediate shift in the atmosphere. The air is cooler, the space seems to pulse with unseen energy, and the sound of the marsh or waves are faint compared to the subtle noises inside the tower. Many report seeing the faint outline of a figure moving near the glass or standing silently at the edge of the balcony, gazing out over the marshes and sea. Some describe the ghostly figures performing tasks, polishing the glass panels of the lantern or adjusting mechanisms that, for living humans, require no attention. These apparitions appear focused and deliberate, as though they're still carrying out their nightly rounds, ensuring that the light shines steadily for sailors far below. Lights in the lantern room are frequently reported to flicker or pulse without explanation. Witnesses describe the beam of the lighthouse fluctuating in ways inconsistent with the Lighthouses' normal operation. Witnesses describe the beam of the lighthouse fluctuating in ways inconsistent with the Lighthouses' normal operation. The flickering lights and shadows contribute to the eerie sense of being watched, and to the feeling that the spirits of past keepers remain vigilant over the tower, doors opening, closing, or even locking without any discernible cause. Some visitors describe the sound of metal handles turning or hinges creaking when the room is otherwise empty. The motions are rarely aggressive. Instead, they seem purposeful, almost as if the keepers are inspecting the room, ensuring it remains orderly and preparing for the arrival of ships on the distant horizon. Auditory phenomena are common as well. Whispered instructions, the faint clinking of tools, or the rustle of garments can sometimes be heard echoing to the lantern room. Many visitors interpret these sounds as residual echoes of the keeper's routines, or as the spirits themselves carrying out duties that once demanded their attention. On calm nights, the whispering can be especially clear, forming indistinct phrases that seem to warn of approaching storms or distant dangers at sea. These experiences, while subtle, reinforce the idea that the keeper's vigilance has not ended with death. Sightings in the lantern room are often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of devotion. Witnesses describe feeling as though the apparitions are not menacing but protective, maintaining the lighthouse for both the living and the unseen sailors who rely on the beacon. Even when a figure disappears suddenly, the impression remains that the spirits are always present, continuing their watch, silently ensuring that the light fulfills its purpose. Some visitors have noted that the air seems to shift around them, cold spots forming as the presence grows closer, then fading as the figures recede into the shadows. The legend of Bodhi Island's haunted lantern room emphasizes the unbroken duty of its keepers, their dedication to maintaining the light, even in life-threatening conditions, is said to extend beyond death. The spirits are believed to patrol the tower, clean and polish the glass, and keep the beam steady for those navigating the treacherous shoals and shifting sands. Even as storms batter the coastline or the marshes stretch endlessly below, the spectral keepers are thought to remain steadfast, vigilant guardians of the lighthouse. Today, the lantern room continues to draw visitors from across the Outer Banks and beyond, not only for its historical significance, but also for the chance to experience the supernatural firsthand. Tourists, researchers, and ghost hunters all report similar experiences: shadowy figures, flickering lights, whispering voices, an impression of unseen hands tending to the tasks once performed by devoted keepers. For those who venture to the top of Bodhi Island Lighthouse, the lantern room is a place of awe and quiet reverence. The faint movement of spectral figures, the flickering of lights, and the soft creak of doors all serve as reminders that the duty of a keeper is eternal. Even long after death, the spirits remain, polishing the glass, standing vigil, and ensuring that the light continues to guide sailors safely through the shifting shoals of the Outer Banks. The lantern room is more than a beacon. It is a testament to devotion, a place where history, mystery, and the supernatural converge in the quiet rhythm of eternal watchfulness. Oak Island Lighthouse, perched on the southern tip of Caswell Beach, North Carolina, is a striking sentinel of brick and steel, its beacon cutting across the murky Atlantic waters. While it has long guided mariners safely past treacherous shoals, the lighthouse is equally renowned for its spectral activity, particularly on foggy nights. Visitors often report a variety of paranormal phenomena during these evenings, when the mist softens the edges of the world and the air grows damp and cold. Ghostly silhouettes appear on the catwalk, lantern lights move seemingly of their own accord, and whispers drift through the fog, carrying warnings to those who venture too close. Many believe that the lighthouse is haunted by the keeper who vanished decades ago, eternally patrolling the premises, his duty unbroken even in death. Foggy nights seem to awaken the lighthouse in a way that clear skies never do. As mist rolls across the beach and swells from the marshlands, it transforms the structure into a place of shadow and mystery. Visitors often report seeing dark shapes moving along the catwalk, figures that vanish when approached or drift silently past the windows of the lantern room. These apparitions are most frequently described as human-shaped, tall and deliberate in movement, as they're performing tasks that were once vital in life. Witnesses often feel the weight of being observed, an almost tangible presence that follows them as they navigate the spiral staircases and walkways. The lantern lights themselves seem to take on a life of their own during foggy evenings. Many explorers describe seeing faint glows swing across the walls of the lighthouse, illuminating corners where no lamp has been lit. Sometimes the light flickers intermittently, as if signaling an unseen visitor, while at other times it appears to float along the catwalk, casting moving shadows that mimic human figures. These phenomena are most pronounced during nights when the fog is thickest, enhancing the ethereal quality of the light and amplifying the sense of unseen activity. Some have suggested that these are the spectral hands of the long-gone keeper, continuing to ensure that the light shines as it always should. Whispers are another hallmark of Oaklanda as fog-bound hauntings. Explorers report faint voices, often indistinct at first, but gradually forming the impression of urgent messages or warnings. These whispers seem to drift along the catwalk or echo down the spiral stairwell, conveying instructions to the living as if the keeper were still performing his nightly rounds. The sounds are subtle, almost imperceptible to the untrained ear, yet they leave an indelible impression on those who experience them. Some visitors have reported hearing phrases that suggest danger approaching, guiding them away from treacherous spots on the lighthouse grounds, or signaling unseen hazards in the surrounding waters. Many visitors speak of sudden chills, the brush of invisible hands on their shoulders, or the feeling of being guided along the catwalk. These sensations are rarely threatening, but carry a weight of intent, as if the presence is both protective and commanding. Explorers often describe a sense of urgency in these interactions, the invisible hands pressing them to move or warning them to leave the lighthouse temporarily. It is as though the vanished keeper's duty transcends the limits of life and continues to impose itself on those who dare to tread the misty grounds. The legend of the missing lighthouse keeper is central to the Oak Island hauntings. Decades ago, a keeper vanished without explanation, his disappearance sparking local speculation and enduring mystery. According to folklore, he never truly left the lighthouse. The fog itself seems to amplify every element of the haunting. Visibility is reduced, sounds are muffled and distorted, and the lighthouse takes on otherworldly quality. Many visitors report heightened experiences during dense fog, noting that footsteps, whispers, and flickering lights are more frequent and pronounced. The mist transforms the lighthouse into a liminal space, a threshold between the living and the dead, where the past asserts itself more strongly than at any other time. Explorers often leave the lighthouse with a sense of awe and unease. The fog-shrouded structure, the spectral silhouettes, the moving lanterns, and the whispered messages leave an impression of a place alive with purpose and vigilance. The Oak Island Lighthouse is not merely a historical landmark or navigational aid. It is a site where the dedication of one long-dead keeper continues, manifesting in sight, sound, and sensation for those who brave the fog. For those who walk the catwalk under the veil of mist, the lighthouse becomes a living monument to duty, vigilance, and the persistence of spirit. Ghostly figures polish the unseen glass, lanterns swing with unseen hands, and whispers echo in the night, all serving as reminders that some responsibilities cannot be abandoned, even by death. On Oak Island, foggy nights are when history and the supernatural intertwine, and when the vanished keeper continues his eternal patrol, ensuring that the light remains a steadfast guide for both the living and the unseen. Cape Lookout Lighthouse, standing proudly on the remote southern outer banks of North Carolina, is more than just a navigational aid for mariners. It is a landmark steeped in history, mystery, and the supernatural. The lighthouse rises from the sandy barrier islands, its black and white diamond-patterned tower cutting a striking figure against the Atlantic sky. Its isolation, set apart from bustling towns and surrounded by marshes and shifting sands, has made a magnet not only for visitors seeking breathtaking views, but also for those drawn to tales of ghostly activity. For decades, explorers have reported strange occurrences throughout the lighthouse, particularly in the lantern room, stairwells, and corridors, where the past seems to linger with a presence all its own. Visitors often sense a shift in the air the moment they step onto the Cape Lookout grounds. The isolation of the location amplifies every sound and movement, creating a palpable tension that many describe as uncanny. Footsteps echo in empty corridors, faint yet deliberate, as though someone is pacing silently in the shadows. Doors, once secured, are known to swing open on their own, moving slowly or with a sudden gust that seems inconsistent with the gentle coastal breeze. Those exploring the lighthouse at dusk or during stormy weather have reported feeling invisible presences brush past them, leaving an inexplicable chill in the air. These experiences are often accompanied by an overwhelming sense of being watched, as though unseen eyes are tracking every movement. The Lantern Room, perched high above the Outer Banks, is the heart of the Lighthouses' supernatural reputation. Many visitors describe shadowy figures standing vigil over the Atlantic, their forms faint yet unmistakable. Some seem to move with purpose, tending to the lantern, polishing the glass, or adjusting the mechanisms as if the light could fail without their intervention. The flicker of the lamp and the glow of its reflection across the room sometimes cast shifting shadows, creating the impression that the figures are more active than mere silhouettes. These apparitions are often reported as calm and measured, as if carrying on a duty that transcends mortality, ensuring that the beacon continues to shine for sailors navigating treacherous waters. Auditory phenomena are another hallmark of Cape Lucata's hauntings. Visitors frequently report low murmurs drifting down the hallways or echoing from the stairwells. At times, the sounds rise into faint shouts or warnings, startling those unprepared for the experience. Some claim to hear voices calling names or repeating instructions, reminiscent of commands a lighthouse keeper might have issued in life. These sounds are often subtle, almost imperceptible, yet they linger in the mind long after the visitor has left the lighthouse. On stormy nights, the auditory experiences intensify, merge with the roar of wind and the crash of waves to create an environment that feels simultaneously alive and haunted. Physical sensations are commonly reported alongside these visual and auditory occurrences. Many visitors describe the sensation of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders. Some explorers have felt a gentle guidance, as if an unseen presence is nudging them away from dangerous spots or urging them towards safety. These experiences, combined with the echoes, shadows, and moving doors, create a strong impression of a space still watched over by those who once lived and worked there. Local legend ties much of this activity to the Lighthouses' tragic history. Over the decades, multiple keepers lost their lives to hurricanes, storms, and the relentless challenges of life on the Outer Banks. The lighthouse demanded constant vigilance, and even the slightest lapse could result in disaster for ships and sailors dependent on the light. According to folklore, the spirits of these keepers remain at Cape Lookout, continuing to maintain their post and ensuring that the beacon functions perfectly. The consistent reports of footsteps, moving doors, and shadowy figures have reinforced this belief, with many visitors interpreting the experiences as the enduring watch of dedicated souls who cannot abandon their duty. The isolation of the southern Outer Banks only intensifies the sensation of being in a space touched by the past. The absence of modern noise allows the faintest sounds to carry, while the wind and fog create shifting shadows that play tricks on the eye. Visitors have noted that ghostly activity seems strongest during stormy or foggy nights, when the environment mimics the harsh conditions that the keepers once faced. During these times, footsteps seem to echo more loudly, whispers are clearer, and the Lantern Room appears almost alive with unseen activity. Explorers consistently leave Cape Lookout with a sense of awe and reverence. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena makes it clear why the lighthouse has long been associated with ghostly presence. Shadowy figures, flickering lights, murmurs from empty halls, and doors moving on their own all contribute to the impression that Cape Lookout remains a site of eternal vigilance. The spirits of the keepers, whether seen or sensed, continue to tend the lighthouse, ensuring that its light shines for anyone navigating the perilous waters of the Outer Banks. Cape Lookout Lighthouse, perched amid the shifting sands and relentless tides of southern Outer Banks, is a monument to duty, sacrifice, and spectral devotion. Its remote location, combined with the tragic history of keepers lost to storms, has created a setting where the supernatural thrives. Phantom footsteps, shadowy figures in the Lantern Room, and whispered warnings in the corridors serve as reminders that the duty of a keeper is never truly finished. On foggy and stormy nights, the spirits of Cape Lookout continue their watch, patrolling the lighthouse, guiding sailors, and maintaining a presence that bridges the living and the dead, ensuring that the beacon remains. eternal. Currituck Beach Lighthouse, standing tall on the wind-swept shores of North Carolina's Outer Banks, is a sentinel not just of the sea, but of stories that blur the line between history and the supernatural. The lighthouse has long guided ships through treacherous waters, its light cutting across the sand, marshes, and open Atlantic, warning sailors of the hidden shoals and shifting channels that have claimed countless vessels. Yet, while the beacon has saved lives for well over a century, visitors to Currituck Beach have reported encounters that suggest the lighthouse is more than a navigational Ida. It is a place haunted by the dedication and spirit of those who once tended its light. Thick coastal fog, rolling in from the ocean and draping the landscape in white-gray mist, is said to reveal the lighthouse's most persistent and mysterious activity. Explorers venturing to the lighthouse during foggy nights often speak first of the atmosphere. The air becomes cool and heavy, the fog muffling the sound of waves and footsteps alike, creating a quiet that is almost unnatural. Visitors describe shadowy forms that pause at the railing, gazing out over the water, their movements deliberate and watchful, their hands folded behind their backs or moving in the motions of tending to the beacon. They vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of footsteps or the lingering sense that someone unseen continues to observe the coast. On fog-laden evenings, explorers have noticed a lantern swinging gently despite the absence of wind or disturbance. The faint movement of light casts shifting shadows along the walls, creating the illusion of figures moving about the room. Some visitors report seeing hands, indistinct and luminous, adjusting the glass panels or polishing a lantern, as if performing precise maintenance that keepers once carried out nightly. Flickers of light sometimes trace along the stairwell, illuminating areas where no living person is present, enhancing the feeling that the lighthouse itself is alive with the presence of those long gone. The spiral staircase, narrow and echoing, is a particularly active sight during foggy nights. Many explorers have felt the creak of steps beneath invisible weight, as though a keeper is ascending or descending the stairs in perfect rhythm. Occasionally, a sudden chill accompanies these sounds, or the unmistakable sensation of being brushed by an unseen hand. Some visitors report whispered warnings as they climb, soft voices speaking of approaching dangers at sea, urging them to move quickly or step cautiously. These whispers, though often indistinct, carry an unmistakable urgency, a reminder of the responsibilities the keepers bore while Olivia and perhaps continue to bear from beyond the grave. The legend of the Phantom Keeper at Currituck Beach is central to these experiences. According to local stories, a keeper once perished while attempting to warn sailors of an approaching storm, sacrificing his life to prevent a shipwreck. It is said that his spirit never left the lighthouse, continuing his duty by patrolling the balcony, inspecting the lantern, and maintaining vigilance over the treacherous waters. The ghostly activity reported in the lighthouse of figures at the balcony, lanterns moving, footsteps on empty stairs, and whispered warnings is widely attributed to this devoted keeper, whose sense of duty endures beyond death. Auditory experiences are just as common as visual ones. Visitors describe hearing the low creak of boards in hallways where no one walks, or the distant clanging of a bell signaling caution. The ghostly activity reported in the lighthouse of figures at the balcony, lanterns moving, footsteps on empty stairs, and whisper warnings is widely attributed to this devoted keeper, whose sense of duty endures beyond death. Auditory experiences are just as common as visual ones. Visitors describe hearing the low creak of boards in hallways where no one walks, or the distant clanging of a bell signaling caution. Whispered words drift along corridors, sometimes repeating instructions, sometimes warning of unseen hazards. On fog-heavy nights, these sounds carry further, bouncing along the tower and across the sand, making it seem as if the lighthouse itself is alive with the echoes of the past. The combination of shadowy figures, moving lanterns, and mysterious sounds gives visitors a powerful impression that the fog brings the lighthouse's history to life, allowing the spirits of the keepers to perform their eternal duties once more. Physical sensations are also frequently reported by those exploring the lighthouse during fog. Sudden chills, goosebumps, or the brush of an invisible hand are common, particularly near the spiral staircase or the balcony. Many describe the feeling of being guided or subtly urged along, as if the ghostly presence is ensuring both the safety of the living and the ongoing care of the lighthouse itself. These encounters are rarely frightening in a malicious sense. Rather, they convey a sense of devotion, discipline, and vigilance. The isolation of Currituck Beach amplifies these experiences. Surrounded by shifting sands, marshes, and the distant roar of the Atlantic, the lighthouse stands alone, allowing even faint sounds or movements to take on a life of their own. Fog settles over the landscape like a veil, and the natural world as quiet enhances the perception of spectral activity. Visitors often report that the heavier the fog, the more pronounced the ghostly phenomena, as if the mist itself provides a stage for the phantom keeper to perform his watch. For those who climb to the balcony or ascend the spiral staircase during a foggy night, the phantom keeper continues his eternal patrol, warning of dangers, tending the lantern, and ensuring the light shines for sailors far below. The thick coastal fog seems to awaken this activity, creating a bridge between the living and the dead, a reminder that some duties cannot end, even with death. At Currituck Beach, the lighthouse is both a guardian and a witness. Its fog-shrouded presence a testament to dedication, sacrifice, and the enduring watch of the keeper who still protects the coast. From beyond the grave, the keeper's balcony of Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, perched high above the shifting sands and relentless waves of North Carolina's Outer Banks, has long been a sight of both awe and unease. From this vantage point, the Atlantic stretches endlessly, the horizon meeting sky in a seamless, gray expanse. It is here, on this narrow ledge encircling the lantern room, that visitors most frequently report encounters with the supernatural. Figures staring silently at the horizon, lanterns swinging despite the absence of wind, whispers drifting through the fog, and sudden cold gusts all contribute to the eerie reputation of the keeper's balcony. According to local legend, these manifestations are the spirits of lighthouse keepers who perish in storms, continuing their eternal duty to protect passing ships from the treacherous waters below. The atmosphere of the balcony is different from any other part of the lighthouse. Even on calm nights, explorers often feel a chill that seems to originate from nowhere, a coldness that hugs the skin and settles into the bones. Many describe the sensation as though someone invisible has just passed by, the air momentarily compressed and then released. This phenomenon is frequently accompanied by soft whispers, faint yet discernible, drifting from the fog-laden shore below. Visitors often interpret these sounds as warnings, echoing the voices of keepers long gone, cautioning Sailorsa or perhaps the Lavinga of unseen dangers in the surrounding waters. Sightings of ghostly figures are common on the keeper's balcony. Witnesses describe shadowy forms standing near the railing, gazing intently toward the horizon. Some appear dressed in the uniforms of lighthouse keepers from decades past, their postures upright and deliberate, as if maintaining a solemn vigil. These apparitions are rarely threatening. Instead, they convey a sense of purpose and vigilance. Visitors recount moments when the figures seem to follow their gaze, remaining fixed on the horizon even as the observer shifts position, and then vanish suddenly, leaving only the sound of wind or the distant crash of waves. The lantern itself seems to take on a life of its own during these encounters. On many nights, explorers have reported the light swinging subtly, the glow shifting in ways inconsistent with the operation of the lamp. Shadows dance along the walls of the lantern room and across the balcony floor, often creating the impression that someone is moving the apparatus, checking the mechanisms, or ensuring the lamp remains properly aligned. The effect is heightened on foggy evenings, when the light reflects off the thick mist, casting an ethereal glow over the balcony and the surrounding landscape. The combination of moving light and shadow reinforces the sense that the balcony is not merely a static platform, but a space alive with lingering devotion and watchfulness. Auditory phenomena on the balcony are particularly striking. The combination of moving light and shadow reinforces the sense that the balcony is not merely a static platform, but a space alive with lingering devotion and watchfulness. Beyond the whispers, some visitors have reported the distant sound of bells or the rhythmic tapping of boots on the railing or spiral staircases below. These sounds are often described as deliberate and methodical, echoing to the tower in a way that suggests purpose. Many believe they are residual echoes of the keeper's routines, a form of spectral communication, or the ongoing patrol of spirits ensuring the lighthouse fulfills its purpose. Even when no one is visible, the presence of these sounds creates a powerful impression that the balcony is under constant watch, not by the living, but by those who once lived and died in service to the light. Physical sensations accompany these sightings and sounds. Many visitors report sudden gusts of cold air, even when the wind is calm, or the feeling of an invisible hand brushing past their shoulder or arm. The combination of chill and touch heightens the eerie effect, leaving explorers with a tangible sense that something or something is moving around them unseen. These experiences are rarely threatening. Instead, they convey the discipline, focus, and vigilance that keepers once maintained in life, continuing into death. The legend of the haunted keeper as balcony is tied closely to the history of Cape Hatteras Lighthouse itself. The lighthouse has guided ships through the dangerous Diamond Shoal for over a century, a stretch of water notorious for sudden storms, shifting sands, and hidden reefs. Many keepers lost their lives attempting to protect vessels from disaster, and local lore holds that their spirits remain bound to the lighthouse by duty and devotion. The ghostly figures, swinging lanterns, whispers, and sudden cold gusts are all interpreted as manifestations of this eternal vigilance, a spectral continuation of the keeper's unbroken commitment to guiding sailors safely. Foggy nights, in particular, seem to amplify the haunting. The mist muffles natural sounds and diffuses light, creating an environment where shadows lengthen and noises carry unnaturally far. Visitors often report heightened activity during these conditions. Figures appear more clearly on the balcony, whispers are easier to discern, and lanterns flicker more dramatically. The combination of fog, cold air, and the sound of waves crashing below gives the impression that the balcony has become a liminal space, a threshold between the living and the spirits who continue their watch. The spirits of keepers who perished in storms continue their eternal patrol, ensuring ships do not stray and that the light remains steadfast. The balcony is a site where history, legend, and the supernatural converge, offering a haunting reminder that some responsibility, Asa, like the duty of a lighthouse keeper, cannot end, not even with death. While the lighthouse itself serves as a guiding beacon for sailors navigating treacherous shoals, its uppermost spaces, particularly the attic, seem to exist in a realm where the past refuses to remain buried. Figures moving silently among the rafters, footsteps echoing along the wooden beams, and whispers emanating from empty corners. The most chilling accounts describe the ghostly presence of the lighthouse keeper. Bodie Island Lighthouse was first lit in 1872, replacing older structures lost to erosion and the encroaching sea. Its keepers were tasked with demanding duties of maintaining the lamp, polishing the lens, patrolling the tower, and ensuring that the light shone without interruption. Many of these keepers faced dangerous conditions, isolated from the mainland and subject to storms, wind, and relentless tides. It is perhaps no surprise, then, that the spirits of those who once maintained the lighthouse are said to linger in spaces they knew intimately. Among these, the attic is a particularly active location. Its low ceilings, exposed beams, and narrow walkways create shadows and echoes that make the presence of unseen figures almost tangible. Visitors entering the attic often report a sudden chill, even on warm days. The temperature drops noticeably, a sensation that many describe as the invisible brush of someone passing close by. Footsteps have been heard pacing the wooden floorboards, slow and deliberate, as if a person is moving along the beams inspecting the structure. These sounds are often accompanied by the creaking of rafters, shifting dust, and faint scuffing noises that seem to follow visitors wherever they move. Even those who are alone in the space describe the unnerving impression that they are being watched, the gaze of a presence that remains just out of sight, yet fully aware of their every movement. Figures moving among the rafters are another frequently reported phenomenon. Witnesses describe shadows shifting along the beams, taking human form briefly before vanishing or dissolving into darkness. These apparitions often appear focused, performing actions reminiscent of a lighthouse keeper-esque tasks, checking structural supports, adjusting ropes or pulleys, or standing in quiet observation. The figures are described as semi-transparent, yet solid enough to cast fleeting shadows and leave the impression of movement. Many visitors note that these apparitions seem aware of their presence but are not hostile. Rather, they convey a sense of vigilance and dedication, continuing duties they once performed in life. Whispers are an almost constant element of the Bodhi Island attic experience. Explorers report faint voices, often indecipherable, drifting from nowhere in particular. Some interpret these as the instructions or warnings of the spectral keeper, echoes of commands he once gave while ensuring the lighthouse operated flawlessly. On rare occasions, visitors have claimed to hear more distinct phrases, warning of dangers or urging careful steps across the narrow beams. The voices are typically subtle, blending with the natural creaks and groans of the wooden structure, yet they leave a lasting impression, heightening the sense that the attic is inhabited by those who refuse to leave. Witnesses describe a figure standing at the far end of the attic, sometimes partially illuminated by faint light from a small window, observing the space with quiet intensity. The keeper is often described in period attire, a uniform that harkens back to the Lighthouses' earliest days. He stands unmoving, yet fully present, and disappears if approached too closely. Those who report this encounter often speak an overwhelming sense of duty and responsibility emanating from the apparition, as though the keeper continues to watch over the lighthouse and the waters beyond, even in death. The attic's spectral activity is amplified by its architecture. Exposed beams, narrow rafters, and low ceilings create natural shadows and sound distortions, lending plausibility to the movement of unseen figures. Yet the consistency of reports across decades and from visitors of varying backgrounds suggests more than simple trickery of light and sound. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile experiences creates a compelling sense that the attic remains a space where the living and the spectral intersect. The legend surrounding Bodhi Island Lighthouses' attic is rooted in the dedication of its keepers. Many perish in storms or accidents, their lives claimed by the very waters they sought to protect. Local folklore maintains that these spirits remain, patrolling the attic and upper floors, ensuring that the lighthouse continues to operate as it should. Footsteps, shadows, whispers, and fleeting apparitions are seen as manifestations of this enduring vigilance, a spectral continuation of the keeper's responsibilities. Visitors often leave the attic with a mix of awe and unease, haunted not by fear but by the sense of witnessing devotion that transcends death. The Bodhi Island attic, with its ghostly figures among the rafters, echoes of unseen footsteps, and whispered warnings, stands as a testament to the enduring presence of those who once dedicated their lives to safeguarding ships and sailors. In this quiet, shadowed space, the past persists, the spirit of the keeper remaining vigilant, a guardian of the lighthouse and the treacherous waters that stretch endlessly beyond the shore. The grounds surrounding Oak Island Lighthouse, nestled on the southern tip of Caswell Beach, North Carolina, are steeped in both maritime history and tales of lingering spirits. While the lighthouse itself has guided countless ships through the treacherous shoals of the Atlantic, the area immediately surrounding it is equally infamous for paranormal activity. Visitors and explorers have reported an array of eerie phenomena that transform the open lawns, walkways, and peripheral structures into a landscape alive with spectral presence. Phantom lanterns float across the grass, footsteps echo along the pathways, and whispered voices drift through the thick coastal fog. Many claim to have seen shadowy figures climbing the tower, only to vanish when approached, creating an unsettling sense of a world where the living and the dead coexist. The Oak Island Lighthouse grounds are quiet and windswept, with a constant roar of the ocean serving as a backdrop to any activity. The isolation of the location amplifies every sound, allowing even the softest creak of a board or rustle of grass to carry unnaturally far. Visitors often report the sudden appearance of phantom lanterns hovering along the lawn, their dim light swinging gently as if carried by unseen hands. These ghostly lamps often move in patterns that suggest purpose, tracing familiar paths along the grounds as though illuminating walkways for someone invisible. The lantern's glow sometimes flickers across the surrounding trees and shrubs, casting shadows that seem to shift independently, creating the impression of figures pacing silently nearby. Footsteps are a common and unsettling phenomenon reported on the grounds. Explorers frequently describe hearing the deliberate rhythm of someone walking along the paths. Even when they're alone, the sound sometimes follows them as they move, echoing in perfect cadence with their own steps before fading abruptly. Other times, the footsteps are heard ascending the base of the tower, consistent with the movement of someone climbing the spiral staircase, only to disappear before anyone can glimpse a living presence. Many visitors interpret these sounds as the restless movements of former keepers or sailors lost at the sea, their spirits wandering the lighthouse grounds long after death. Whispered voices are another hallmark of Oakislanda's haunted exterior. The fog, which often rolls in thick from the Atlantic, seems to amplify these murmurs, carrying them across the lawns and along the edges of the marshes. The words are rarely intelligible, yet the tone conveys urgency or warning, as if unseen lips are trying to guide or protect. As if unseen lips are trying to guide or protect. As if unseen lips are trying to guide or protect. On stormy or windy nights, these whispers become more pronounced, blending with the natural sounds of the ocean to create an otherworldly atmosphere. Many visitors report feeling that these voices are communicating directly with them, a spectral bridge connecting the present to tragedies long past. Spectral figures are perhaps the most chilling phenomenon observed on the Oak Island grounds. Witnesses frequently describe shadowy forms climbing the lighthouse tower, moving with purpose and precision, only to vanish before they can be approached. These figures are often faintly human in shape, sometimes described in period attire reminiscent of lighthouse keepers or mariners. Their movements are deliberate, as if they are performing tasks left unfinished in life, patrolling the tower or attending to the beacon. The sudden disappearance of these apparitions, combined with the isolation of the location, creates a powerful impression that the grounds themselves are a stage for the continuation of old duties. The legend of Oak Island intertwines with both keepers and shipwreck victims. Historical records and local lore tell of numerous keepers who perished while maintaining the lighthouse. Folklore holds that their spirits have not left, instead lingering on the grounds, bound to the lighthouse that once guided them or that they served in life. The blending of spectral keepers and lost mariners creates an environment where the boundary between the living and the dead feels permeable. Visitors often sense that the lighthouse and its grounds are not merely haunted by individuals, but by the collective memory of the lives and sacrifices connected to the site. As mist rolls in from the ocean, visibility decreases and shadows lengthen. The faint glow of lanterns, whether real or spectral, cast shifting patterns that make the figures appear more distinct. Whispered voices carry farther, footsteps echo more clearly, and the sense of being observed grows stronger. Many explorers report a heightened awareness of the past on these nights, a sensation that the very air of the lighthouse grounds is alive with lingering spirits, performing their eternal watch over the island and the waters beyond. The experience of wandering the Oak Island lighthouse grounds is simultaneously awe-inspiring and unsettling. Phantom lanterns floating across the lawns, footsteps along empty paths, whispers in the fog, and the fleeting appearance of spectral figures combine to create a vivid, immersive sense of the supernatural. The grounds are not simply haunted. They are alive with the dedication, vigilance, and unresolved tragedies of those who came before. Visitors leave with a sense that the lighthouse and its surroundings are more than historic structure risa. They are monuments to lives spent in service, to sacrifices made, and to the spirits who continue to protect the island and its waters. They are monuments to lives spent in service, to sacrifices made, and to the spirits who continue to protect the island and its waters. Phantom keepers patrol the tower, spectral mariners wander the lawns, and ghostly lanterns illuminate the paths, all bound by duty and tragedy. And ghostly lanterns illuminate the paths, all bound by duty and tragedy. On quiet nights when the fog is thick and the ocean roars, the air is alive with unseen presence. The spirits of Oak Island continue their eternal watch, ensuring that the lighthouse, the grounds, and the waters beyond are forever protected. A haunting testament to vigilance, sacrifice, and enduring connection between the living and the spectral world. Cape Lookout Lighthouse, standing tall on the remote stretches of the southern Outer Banks, has long been a guardian against the treacherous waters of the Atlantic. Its striking black and white diagonal pattern cuts a stark figure against the sky, warning sailors of shifting shoals and hidden sandbars that claim countless ships over the centuries. Yet, during coastal storms, this historic lighthouse is said to reveal a more spectral presence, a haunting that both fascinates and terrifies those who venture near. Visitors report shadowy figures pacing the balcony, lantern lights swinging without wind, and the distant tolling of bells from ships long lost to the sea. Many explorers even describe a sensation of invisible hands tugging at their clothing or brushing past them, guiding them away from perceived danger. These phenomena are attributed to the spirits of keepers who perish while performing their duties during violent storms, their vigilance continuing beyond death. The power of the Outer Banks storms the high winds, crashing waves, and dense fogus seems to awaken the lighthouse's spectral activity. On stormy nights, the balcony becomes a stage for eerie manifestations. Shadowy figures are seen moving deliberately along the railing, their postures erect and purposeful, suggesting the familiar routines of keepers from long ago. These apparitions are rarely malevolent. Rather, they convey a sense of relentless duty, performing tasks even after their lives were claimed by the very storms they sought to endure. Observers describe watching the figures pace the balcony as if inspecting the lighthouse or scanning the horizon for approaching ships, their eyes fixed and unblinking, disappearing only when someone approaches too closely. The lantern room itself is a focal point for supernatural occurrences during storms. Visitors frequently report the light swinging gently despite calm interior conditions, the glow casting shifting shadows along the walls and the balcony floor. Some have seen hands appear briefly, adjusting the lantern or polishing the glass, echoing the meticulous work of keepers from decades past. The combination of moving light and ghostly shadows creates an unnerving atmosphere, as if the lighthouse has become a vessel for the spirit's ongoing watch. Fog often amplifies these effects, reflecting and diffusing a lanterna-esque glow across the balcony and into surrounding storm, adding an otherworldly sheen to the activity. Auditory phenomena are equally striking. Many explorers recount hearing the distant ringing of ship bells, the creaking of boards, and the soft footfalls of someone climbing the spiral staircase. These sounds are often precise and purposeful, mimicking the measured rhythm of key purser routines. On occasion, whispers accompany the noises, though their words are seldom clear. Visitors interpret these as warnings, a spectral communication meant to alert them to dangers both in the storm and on the perilous waters below. A combination of shadowy figures, moving light, and mysterious sounds gives the impression that the lighthouse itself is alive with the presence of those who once tended it faithfully. Physical sensations further intensify the haunting. Many have reported sudden cold gusts, despite protective clothing and the surrounding storm-esque direction. Others describe the unmistakable feeling of being lightly tugged or guided, as though invisible hands are urging them to step away from the edge of the balcony or the slippery stair treads. These experiences are rarely threatening, instead imparting a profound sense of care and vigilance, as if the spirits continue to perform their duties for both the lighthouse and those who venture near. The legend surrounding Cape Lookout storm hauntings is rooted in its history. Over the years, multiple keepers lost their lives while maintaining the beacon, particularly during violent hurricanes and sudden squalls. Local lore holds that these keeper spirits never left the lighthouse. Instead, they continue to patrol the balcony, maintain the lantern, and warn sailors of impending danger, eternally bound to the structure and the treacherous waters it guards. Explorers frequently remark that the experiences on stormy nights are so vivid that one could almost believe the keepers are actively performing their duties, unaware that death has claimed them. Storms seem to heighten all forms of activity. The wind, waves, and rain create an auditory backdrop that blends seamlessly with footsteps, whispers, and the faint ringing of distant bells. Visibility is reduced, making the shadowy figures appear more distinct as their outlines emerge through mist and rain. Lanterns swinging, sometimes violently, add to the dramatic effect, their light reflecting off the wet surfaces of the balcony and stairwell. Many visitors find that the lighthouse feels alive during these moments, a liminal space where the living and the spectral coexist, each aware of the other yet separated by the veil of time. For those brave enough to witness it, Cape Lookout Lighthouse during a coastal storm is a hauntingly vivid reminder of dedication and sacrifice. Shadowy figures on the balcony, swinging lanterns, phantom footsteps, and the tug of invisible hands all speak of keepers who continue their duties long after death. The lighthouse becomes not only a historic monument, but a living testament to the vigilance, courage, and unwavering sense of responsibility of those who have safeguarded sailors against the Atlantica's perils. On stormy nights, the spirits of Cape Lookout's phantom keepers patrol relentlessly, ensuring the light shines, warning of danger, and preserving the eternal connection between the lighthouse and the sea it protects. Currituck Beach Lighthouse, standing stoically on the northern outer banks of North Carolina, has long been a beacon for sailors navigating the shifting sands and treacherous shoals along the coast. By day, its white tower gleams in the sun, a symbol of guidance and safety. But at night, the lighthouse takes on a far darker presence, drawing the attention of those who seek the eerie and unexplained. Visitors and explorers report a range of paranormal phenomena, from shadowy figures silently ascending the spiral staircase to doors swinging open without cause, accompanied by faint whispers drifting through the hallways. Central to these accounts is the figure of the ghostly keeper, still stationed at the lantern, watching the horizon and maintaining an eternal vigil over the waters he once protected in life. The haunting seems most pronounced after sundown, when the sound of the ocean and the wind combine with the isolation of the lighthouse to create an atmosphere of heightened awareness. Those who enter the tower after dark often report a sudden chill that cannot be attributed to the evening air. The temperature drops unexpectedly on the stairs, along the hallways, and near the lantern room. This cold presence is often accompanied by the sensation of unseen footsteps pacing behind or above, a rhythmic echo that follows explorers as they ascend the spiral staircase. Despite the absence of any visible person, the sounds are unmistakably deliberate, suggesting the movement of a figure performing duties long familiar to keepers of the lighthouse. Doors within the lighthouse have been known to open and close on their own, adding to the unsettling nature of the night watch. Visitors often describe entering a room or hallway, only to hear the sudden creak of a door swinging on its hinges, as if pushed by an invisible hand. Sometimes the doors close with force, as though the unseen presence is directing traffic within the lighthouse, guiding its visitors along a predetermined path. These movements are never random. They convey a sense of intention, as though the spirits are actively maintaining the order and safety of the lighthouse in the same meticulous manner their living counterparts once did. The whispers reported throughout the lighthouse are among the most unnerving experiences. They often emerge from the darkness of the hallways or from corners where no one could possibly be standing. Explorers describe soft, almost musical murmurs that seem to carry messages or warnings. Though the words are rarely clear, many interpret them as the ghostly keeper attempting to communicate, to ensure that the living understand the dangers of the coastline and the importance of the Lighthouses' guidance. During particularly foggy or stormy nights, these whispers intensify, blending with the sound of waves crashing against the shore and the wind rattling the windows, creating an auditory landscape in which the supernatural feels tangible and present. Perhaps the most striking phenomena occur in the lantern room, where the ghostly keeper has been most often observed. The keeper is often depicted in period clothing, resembling the uniforms worn by lighthouse personnel from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He moves with purpose, adjusting the lamp or polishing the glass, performing the duties that define his life. Though silent and still for observers, his presence conveys a sense of duty and protection, a quiet authority that underscores the idea that his vigilance has not ended with death. Some visitors report feeling a pressure, like the ghostly keeper's gaze extends beyond sight, as he is monitoring their movements and ensuring their safety within the tower. Physical sensations accompany many of these encounters. Unseen fingers tugging gently at their clothing, or an invisible presence guiding them along narrow stairways and ledges. These touches are rarely alarming. Instead, They impart a sense of care, of a spirit ensuring that those who enter the lighthouse remain safe, while moving through spaces that can be dangerous in the dark. The combination of tactile, auditory, and visual phenomena reinforces the impression that the lighthouse is not merely haunted, but actively maintained by its spectral guardian. Local legend ties the haunting to the history of the Lighthouses keepers. Currituck Beach Lighthouse was constructed to warn sailors of shifting sandbars and hazardous waters along the outer banks. Keepers devoted themselves to the light, often facing fierce storms, isolation, and exhaustion to ensure its operation. Many perished in the line of duty, succumbing to the harsh elements or accidents while performing their work. According to folklore, these keepers, particularly one who died while protecting the coast during a violent storm, did not leave the lighthouse in death. Instead, he remains at his post, ensuring that the light continues to shine and that those on land or sea are safe from harm. The nighttime activity at Currituck Beach Lighthouse is heightened by storms and fog, which obscure vision and amplify sounds. The spiral staircase, hallways, and lantern room become liminal spaces where the boundary between the living and the dead feels fragile. Shadowy figures, swinging doors, whispered warnings, and the occasional cold touch all contribute to the impression that the lighthouse is a living entity, sustained not only by its physical structure, but by the vigilance of its spectral keeper. The sounds of footsteps on empty stairs, doors opening without hands, whispers in the darkness, and the ghostly figure of the lantern all serve as a reminder of the dedication and sacrifice of keepers past. The lighthouse stands as a monument not only to maritime history, but to the enduring spirit of those who have watched over the coast, ensuring the safety of sailors and the continued illumination of a guiding light, even beyond the bounds of life. The keeper's quarters at Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, perched on the windswept Outer Banks of North Carolina, are steeped in both history and the uncanny. Built to house the lighthouse keepers and their families, these rooms once served as a center of daily life for those responsible for maintaining the vital beacon that guided ships safely along the treacherous Atlantic coastline. Today, however, the quarters are infamous for paranormal activity, with numerous visitors and explorers reporting encounters that defy explanation. Furniture moves without cause, and doors slam on their own, and ghostly footsteps echo across the floors. Shadows are seen sitting at tables, appearing to write logs or perform tasks that are no longer necessary, suggesting that the spirits of former residents continue their duties even in death. The haunting is most pronounced during the quiet hours of the night. Those who enter the quarters often report an immediate chill, a sudden drop in temperature that seems localized to certain rooms or corners. The air feels heavy, charged with an invisible presence that seems to observe every movement. Many have heard footsteps pacing along the wooden floors, deliberate and slow, as if someone is checking the rooms, inspecting the quarters, or performing familiar duties. These sounds often continue even when visitors are standing perfectly still, creating the unnerving impression of an unseen entity moving purposefully through the space. Furniture moving on its own is a frequent occurrence. Chairs are sometimes found pulled out from tables, desks shifted slightly from their usual positions, or small objects displaced without explanation. Explorers have reported witnessing tables rocking lightly, as if someone had been seated there moments before. Cabinets may creak open and then close by themselves, and drawers are occasionally found left ajar. These movements are subtle, rarely violent, yet undeniably present, reinforcing the feeling that the quarters are still actively maintained by the spirits who once lived and worked there. Doors, in particular, are prone to supernatural activity. Visitors describe them swinging open suddenly, even when locked, or slamming shut with no apparent cause. Sometimes the doors move slowly, creaking along their hinges, as if pushed by an invisible hand. Sometimes the doors slam shut with no apparent cause. Occasionally, visitors report finding doors left ajar. These movements are subtle, rarely violent, yet undeniably present, reinforcing the feeling that the quarters are still actively maintained by the spirits who once lived and worked there. The timing of these occurrences often aligns with other phenomena. Footsteps on the floor above, whispers along the hallways, or sudden cold drafts. giving the impression that the quarters themselves are alive with unseen activity. Many believe that these manifestations are the keepers continuing their routines, performing checks and maintaining the spaces as they did in life. Ghostly shadows are among the most compelling and vivid reports. Several explorers have described seeing forms sitting at tables, appearing to write in journals or logbooks that no one can read. These figures are often faint and semi-transparent, yet they move with purpose, hands tracing over pages as if recording the events of the night or the status of the lighthouse. Some observers have reported the sensation of being watched by these shadows, a quiet, unthreatening presence that conveys diligence rather than malice. Occasionally, the forms vanish when approached, leaving only a lingering sense of vigilance. Auditory phenomena accompany these visual experiences. Sometimes, the voices drift through rooms and corridors, sometimes in patterns that resemble instructions or conversations. While the words are rarely intelligible, many visitors interpret them as reminders, warnings, or routine communications among the keepers. The combination of footsteps, moving furniture, swinging doors, and whispered voices creates a vivid sensory impression that the quarters are actively inhabited by those who serve the lighthouse faithfully in life. The legend surrounding the hauntings of Cape Hatteras keepers' quarters is deeply rooted in the lighthouse's history. Over the years, numerous keepers lived and sometimes perished in the quarters, succumbing to illness, accident, or exposure during harsh storms. Their work was tireless and often dangerous, ensuring that the light remained a reliable guide for sailors navigating one of the most hazardous stretches of coastline in the world. Local lore maintains that these spirits remain, not out of malice, but out of dedication, continuing their nightly routines and watching over the lighthouse and those who enter its grounds. Storms and foggy nights seem to amplify the supernatural activity. The sound of wind rattling windows and doors blends with ghostly footsteps and whispers, while the low light casts shadows that make the apparitions more distinct. Furniture that moves slightly in the dim light seems animated, as if the spirits are performing tasks with quiet precision. Visitors often feel a sense of being guided or observed, a presence that both warns and protects them as they navigate the quarter's narrow hallways and rooms. For those who witness it, the keeper quarters at Cape Hatteras Lighthouse offer a haunting and immersive experience. Moving furniture, slamming doors, whispering voices, and shadowy figures all suggest that the spirits of former residents are still at work. These apparitions are not threatening. They embody the same diligence and commitment that define the lighthouse keepers' lives. The quarters stand as a testament to the dedication, sacrifice, and enduring presence of those who once maintained the beacon, ensuring that even in death, the light continues to be tended, and the coast is watched over with unwavering vigilance. Bodie Island Lighthouse, perched along the Currituck banks of North Carolina, is famous not only for its striking black and white exterior, but also for the eerie presence that inhabits its interior. Among the most active areas of the lighthouse is the spiral stairwell, a narrow, twisting passage that connects the keeper quarters to the lantern room above. Visitors and explorers frequently report that the stairwell seems alive with unseen activity, a place where the living and the spectral coexist in uneasy harmony. Figures ascending the stairs, ghostly lanterns floating just above the steps, and whispered warnings echoing along the spirals are all part of the haunting reputation that has grown over decades. Central to these phenomena is the spirit of a phantom keeper who died long ago yet continues to patrol the stairwell, performing his duties in silence and remaining a vigilant presence for all who enter. The spiral stairwell is steep and narrow, winding tightly around the central column of the lighthouse. Its enclosed walls amplify even the softest sounds, and the wooden steps creak under the lightest weight. The phantom keeper died long ago, yet continues to patrol the stairwell, performing his duties in silence and remaining a vigilant presence for all who enter. On many nights, visitors report hearing footsteps that mimic the cadence of someone climbing the stairs, though no one is visible. These sounds are deliberate and measured, suggesting the careful movements of a keeper checking the tower or ascending to the lantern room. Some explorers have even described the footsteps descending after they themselves climb, creating the unsettling sensation of being followed by a presence that cannot be seen. The repetition and precision of the sounds give the impression that the Phantom Keeper is performing his duties as he did in life, maintaining the lighthouse and ensuring that the beacon is never left unattended. Ghostly figures are often seen ascending the stairs, their outlines faint and mist-like, moving steadily as though climbing toward the lantern room with purpose. Some witnesses describe them in the period attire of lighthouse keepers, long coats and caps illuminated by a spectral glow. These apparitions often appear partially transparent, fading in and out as they move, vanishing entirely when approached. Floating lanterns are another common experience. Visitors frequently report seeing lights hovering near the steps, dim and wavering as though held by invisible hands. Sometimes these lanterns swing gently, casting moving shadows along the walls, illuminating the narrow staircase in an otherworldly glow. The impression they leave is unmistakable. The stairwell is still patrolled, the routines of the past continuing as if time itself has bent to accommodate the presence of the dead. Many believe these lights represent the Phantom Keeper's attempts to maintain the beacon, a symbolic extension of his duties, ensuring that anyone ascending the spiral stairwell is guided safely. In the fog or darkness of night, the floating lanterns can appear almost lifelike, moving deliberately and even seeming to anticipate the steps of those climbing the tower. Whispered warnings are often heard in the stairwell, low and urgent murmurs that echo against the walls. Words are rarely intelligible, but the tone conveys caution, protection, or instruction. Whispers are not meant to frighten, but to guide, a spectral voice warning of missteps, slippery stairs, or impending danger. The sound seems amplified, mingling with the natural noises of the Outer Banks and creating a dense atmosphere in which the past feels vividly present. The combination of whispered voices, footsteps, and floating lanterns produces an immersive experience that is at once unnerving and awe-inspiring. The history of Bodhi Island Lighthouse helps explain why the spiral stairwell is such a focal point for haunting. Keepers who lived in the lighthouse dedicated themselves to maintaining the light under difficult conditions. The isolation, harsh coastal weather, and constant vigilance required to guide ships safely create a deep attachment between the keepers and the tower. According to legend, one particular keeper died while performing his duties, succumbing to illness or accident, and his spirit remained bound to the stairwell where he spent countless hours ascending and descending in service of the lighthouse. Local stories claim that he continues to patrol the stairs, ensuring that the light above remains protected and that visitors below are guided safely. Storms and fog intensify the activity in the spiral stairwell. The sound of rain and wind creates a natural symphony that blends seamlessly with ghostly footsteps, whispers, and the subtle movement of floating lanterns. Shadows appear more distinct in low light, and the stairs themselves seem alive, echoing with energy from the past. Visitors often feel a presence behind them. As they climb, a silent sentinel watching over every step, ensuring that both the lighthouse and those who enter remain safe. For those who encounter the spiral stairwell at Bodhi Island Lighthouse, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures ascend the steps, spectral lanterns float near handrails, and whisper warnings carry through the narrow corridors. The Phantom Keeper's presence is both protective and solemn, a reminder of the dedication and sacrifice of those who maintain the light. The stairwell, with its creaking wood and winding path, becomes a bridge between past and present, a place where history lingers and the vigilance of a ghostly sentinel endures. Even decades after his death, the keeper continues his eternal patrol, a silent guardian of the lighthouse and the treacherous waters beyond. Oak Island Lighthouse stands as a sentinel over the sandy shores of Caswell Beach, its towering presence guiding mariners through the treacherous waters of North Carolina's coast. By day, the structure is a striking symbol of history and maritime heritage, its white walls and red lantern room gleaming under the sun. By night, however, Oak Island reveals a far more mysterious and spectral side. The lantern room, perched high above the coastline, has long been a focus of ghostly reports. Visitors and explorers frequently describe seeing figures polishing the glass, lighting lanterns that have long been extinguished, and moving about with the purposeful motions of keepers from decades past. creating an atmosphere that blurs the line between the living and the dead. The most commonly reported phenomena involve both sight and sound. Observers describe ghostly figures gliding through the lantern room, often dressed in the uniforms or attire typical of 19th and early 20th century lighthouse keepers. Some appear to be polishing the glass panes, their hands moving as if caring for the light, while others seem to adjust or ignite lanterns that have long been obsolete. These figures are semi-transparent, ethereal, and yet their movements are deliberate, precise, and unmistakably purposeful. Visitors who witness them often remark that the ghosts are performing tasks with such intensity and concentration that they appear entirely unaware of the present-day observers in the room. Lights themselves often act in mysterious ways. Lanterns have been reported flickering on and off with no explanation, casting dancing shadows across the walls and floors. Occasionally, the entire lantern room seems illuminated by an unseen presence, a glow that moves in patterns that mimic the actions of keeper. Witnesses describe the experience as both mesmerizing and unsettling, as if the room itself has become a vessel for the dedication of those who once tended the lighthouse tirelessly. The interplay of shadow and light creates a sense of movement, even in moments of stillness, making it difficult to discern the living from the spectral. Auditory phenomena further enhance the haunting, as if the room itself has become a vessel for the dedication of those who once tended the lighthouse tirelessly. Footsteps echo across the metal catwalks and wooden floors, deliberate in cadence, climbing and descending the spiral staircase that leads to the lantern room. These steps are heard even when no one else is present, accompanied at times by the faint sound of whispered instructions, murmurs of routine, or soft exclamations that seem to warn of danger. Some visitors interpret these whispers as guidance or caution, a spectral communication from the keepers who remain vigilant in the afterlife. The combination of flickering lights, moving shadows, and these auditory cues produces an immersive and unsettling experience, as if the lantern room has never truly been empty. Explorers describe the feeling of a cold hand brushing against their shoulder, a light, almost gentle touch that can startle but rarely frightens. Many interpret this as the phantom keeper's way of guiding them towards safety, ensuring they do not stumble along the narrow walkways or the edges of the balcony. Others feel a subtle presence behind them or near their feet, a reminder that the lighthouse is being watched, even when the observers themselves are alone. These tactile encounters, combined with visual and auditory phenomena, reinforce the idea that the spirits of former keepers are actively performing their duties. The history of Oak Island Lighthouse provides context for these hauntings. Built to warn sailors of shifting shoals and dangerous reefs, the lighthouse demanded constant vigilance. Keepers faced isolation, storms, and the relentless duty of maintaining the light, often risking their lives to ensure the safety of mariners. Local legend holds that one keeper, in particular, perished while trying to prevent a shipwreck, succumbing to the very perils he sought to protect others from. Since then, the spirits of keepers, and possibly even those lost at sea, are said to remain bound to the lantern room, continuing their work and watching over the coast with the same dedication they had in life. Visitors frequently report that activity intensifies during foggy nights, storms, or periods of high winds. The natural sounds of crashing waves, rattling windows, and howling gusts seem to blend with the footsteps, whispers, and flickering lights, creating an atmosphere thick with presence. Shadows move more distinctly under the dim glow of lanterns, and the sensation of being observed becomes stronger. Those who have ascended to the lantern room often describe the feeling of stepping into a space where time and reality bend, where past and present intersect, and where the vigilance of phantom keepers transforms the lighthouse into a living monument. For those who witness the lantern room of Oak Island Lighthouse at night, the experience is unforgettable. Ghostly figures polish glass and light long-extinguished lanterns. Flickering lights cast moving shadows. Whispered warnings drift through the air. Cold hands brush gently against the living. The history, dedication, and sacrifice of generations of keepers. And it continues to serve as a spectral beacon, reminding all who enter that some duties never end, and the vigilance of the phantom keepers remains eternal. Cape Lookout Lighthouse, standing tall on the remote stretches of the southern Outer Banks, has long been a beacon for sailors navigating the unpredictable Atlantic waters. By day, its white walls and striking red lantern room are a symbol of maritime guidance. But as night falls and the fog rolls in, the lighthouse takes on a far more mysterious and spectral presence. Visitors who explore the tower during these foggy nights often report experiences that defy explanation. Shadowy figures lingering on the balcony, ghostly footsteps echoing through empty corridors, whispers warning of approaching storms, and lanterns that illuminate stairwells despite no one being present to light them. The activity is most frequently attributed to the spirits of the lighthouse keepers who once devoted their lives to maintaining the light, their vigilance continuing even after death. The lighthouse becomes particularly eerie when fog envelopes the coastline, obscuring the horizon and muffling sound. In this dense atmosphere, visitors frequently report seeing shadowy figures pacing along the balcony or appearing near the railings, their forms semi-transparent and shifting with the swirling mist. These apparitions often resemble the keepers of past decades, dressed in period uniforms, moving with deliberate purpose as if inspecting the light or observing the ocean for incoming ships. Some explorers describe a feeling of being watched, a weightless presence lingering near them, guiding their movements as they traverse the balcony's narrow edges. The figures vanish when approached, leaving behind only a lingering chill in the sense that the lighthouse is alive with unseen guardians. Inside the lighthouse, the spiral stairwell becomes a hot spot for paranormal phenomena. Phantom lanterns are frequently reported floating above the steps, swinging gently as if carried by invisible hands. These lanterns cast flickering shadows on the walls, giving the impression that the stairwell is constantly in use, even when completely empty. Footsteps echo through the narrow corridors and spiral steps, following explorers in precise, deliberate patterns. The sounds mimic the cadence of a keeper patrolling the tower, climbing to the lantern room, or descending to check the lower floors. The rhythm of these steps conveys an uncanny sense of purpose, as though the spectral keepers are still tending to the lighthouse's daily operations. Visitors describe these whispers as cautionary, seeming to alert them to potential danger, whether a loose step, a swaying railing, or the treacherous waters beyond. On particularly foggy nights, the voices grow more pronounced, blending with a howling wind and distant crashing waves, to create an auditory environment thick with tension and presence. The combination of flickering lanterns, echoing footsteps, and whispered warnings produces a profound sensation of being observed and guided, as if the lighthouse itself is inhabited by devoted spirits who have yet to abandon their post. Physical sensations accompany these spectral encounters. Many explorers report sudden cold drafts, inexplicable chills that move along the length of the staircase or across the balcony. Some have felt the brush of an unseen hand against their shoulder or back, light and fleeting but unmistakable. These touches are rarely threatening. Instead, they convey care or guidance, as though the phantom keepers are ensuring that visitors navigate the lighthouse safely. The tactile presence reinforces the sense that the spirits are actively maintaining vigilance over the tower and those who enter it, continuing their duties as they did in life. The history of Cape Lookout Lighthouse explains much of its haunting reputation. Built to protect sailors from the shifting shoals and dangerous currents of the Outer Banks, keepers live in isolation, working tirelessly to maintain the lamp and monitor the horizon, often facing brutal storms and severe weather. Many of these men perish while performing their duties, succumbing to accidents or illness, and local lore holds that their spirits remain bound to the lighthouse. Their dedication in life has extended into death, with the spectral keepers continuing to patrol the corridors, illuminate stairwells, and ensure that the beacon remains operational. Stormy and fog-laden nights intensify the supernatural activity. The sound of waves crashing against the shore, wind rattling the windows, and the muffled roar of the Atlantic blend seamlessly with ghostly footsteps, whispers, and floating lanterns. Shadows appear more vivid in the dim light, moving with purpose as they patrol the stairwell or the balcony. Visitors often sense a presence behind them, watching or guiding their movements, a silent guardian ensuring the safety of all who venture into the lighthouse after dark. For those who encounter Cape Lookout Lighthouse on foggy nights, The experience is unforgettable. Shadowy figures on the balcony, phantom footsteps, whispered warnings, and spectral lanterns all contribute to a hauntingly immersive atmosphere. The lighthouse becomes a living monument, its corridors and stairwells echoing with the presence of keepers who devoted their lives to the light. Their vigilance, unwavering even in death, serves as a reminder that some duties never truly end. In the foggy hours of the Outer Banks, the spirits of Cape Lookout continue their eternal watch, guiding, warning, and protecting the coast as they have for decades, ensuring that both the lighthouse and those who enter its walls remain safe. And there you have it, brave wanderers, 25 haunted lighthouses in North Carolina with phantom keepers, standing sentinel over treacherous waters, echoing with footsteps, whispers, and unseen lanterns. Next time you visit a lighthouse along the Outer Banks, pay attention to the shadows, the creaking floors, and the flicker of a lighter. It may not be the wind or your imagination. It may be a phantom keeper, ensuring the ships never go astray. Thank you for exploring these haunted towers with me. If you felt the chill